It's definitely down there. I can see it.
Yeah, I can see it too. I'm looking right at it.
Yeah, well, I just feel like you can't be 100% sure because you're not looking in the water with me, so I'll just double check for you. Yeah, it's definitely down there. See, if you looked in the water with me, you'd be able to see it.
Well, I see it just fine. So
Look. I'm telling you, man. I'm looking right at it.
yeah, every time you do that, you're actually making it harder for me to see because
Right there.
You keep shaking.
Right there, dude.
You keep shaking the water around it.
I don't know, dude. I think I'm just gonna have to deep dive for it. Maybe see all this.
Okay, well, you're a dog, not a seal. So.
I'm going for it. Here we go.
Not even close. No. Come on, you're getting all wet.
Wow. Yeah, that's at least like 3,049 or
It's not a number.
2 clicks or something down there.
No, just let me think of a better plan. Okay.
Tell mom and dad I'm a good boy. I'm going in.
Wait, hold on.
Saw a few sharks. I had to get out of there.
Definitely no sharks.
Dude, come on. I think if we both go down at the same time, we'll be able to get it.
Okay, yeah, I know that sounds like a terrible plan, then I'm not going to do
Yeah,
that.
seriously, I had it in my mouth. I was so close.
You at no point had that in your mouth. I saw the whole thing. You weren't even close.
I had to drop it. There's like 70 sharks.
Yeah, there's literally no sharks, so.
It's definitely down there.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I am your host, Joe Neerman, aka Good Lawgic. Look, I understand it. I understand it's a voiceover. I thought it was funny. I liked it. I was like, it was good exchange. It was good exchange. I hope you all have been doing well. I apologize for last night, where alas, I was unable to make it back here. The original plan was that I knew I had a wedding last night. The original plan was that I was going to come back early, but I ended up not being able to get there late. And I know you all think, why the heck would there be a wedding on a Tuesday night? That's just how we do it. That's just how we do it. So it tends to run from like 6 to 11 or something. And I planned on going from 6:30. No one ever shows up at 6. If you show up at 6, you're a loser. But I was planning on showing up like at 6 o'clock. 6:30, I mean, and like leaving at like 9:30 and get back here. That didn't happen though. That did not happen. So yeah, so that's why when I realized that I was heading down there late, that's why I canceled my show last night. I apologize to those of you who had planned on spending the evening with me. I apologize to you for that. I did give you a heads up. If you really want to know, hey, is Joe possibly going to back out tonight? See, is there going to be some sort of issue that might keep him from coming out tonight? Best way to find that out is, of course, at Locals, goodlogic.locals.com. That is goodlogic.locals.com. See, that's one of the reasons I sort of slide that on in there. Right there. See that? See, goodlogic.locals.com. I give notifications as to when and where I am, whether it's here on this channel or other channels, as well as other locations. Which, if I'm on X and Spaces and things like that, and we try and do at least once a week a little exclusive content over there. So I urge you to check that out. If you go to Locals right now, I will also see there fantasy football. If that's your deal, I put up a post for people who want to register for our annual Good Logic Fantasy Football League, which we're in year 3 now. Year 1, I took home the crown pretty handily. I was pretty dominant. It was pretty scary how good my team was. Year 2 was not as kind. Actually, I think I ultimately got geschmetted by Joe. It might have been someone else. I don't know. But I lost in the playoffs, didn't make it to the Super Bowl there. So I'm looking for my vengeance. Vengeance shall be mine. Vengeance indeed. Speaking of vengeance, there's a woman with vengeance on her mind who we should really be talking about because it is our First Lady, Melania Trump. That's right. Melania Trump. Did you like that segue? I know it was pretty good, right? That's what podcasters can do. Skilled podcasters can do that. She is looking for vengeance against Hunter Biden. What I love about this, because she's made a threat that she's going to sue him for $1 billion. $1 billion lawsuit. She's made that threat after Hunter Biden made inflammatory Epstein comments. What I really love about the potential of this lawsuit is that it would actually, the title of this lawsuit would be Trump v. Biden and have nothing to do technically with Donald or Joe. So, yes, the idea of the Hatfields and McCoys going at it in court. I love it. I love it. Well, why is she so outraged? Well, it's because of his Epstein comments. First Lady Melania Trump is threatening to sue Hunter Biden for $1 billion after he made the false claim that she was introduced to President Donald Trump by serial P-boy Jeffrey Epstein. First Lady's lawyer demanded that Biden immediately retract the false defamatory, disparaging, and inflammatory statements made about Mrs. Trump. The younger Biden had parroted claims first made by Fire and Fury author Michael Wolff, who appeared on a Daily Beast podcast in late July and said both Epstein and the president were involved with a model agent who introduced Trump to the First Lady. Daily Beast publisher Wolff's claims in a story and has since apologized for it. But that didn't stop 55-year-old former President Joe Biden, who made a follow-up appearance on Channel 5 with Andrew Callahan on August 5th and let the allegations rip like he was Eric Swalwell on live TV. Quote, they knew each other well. They spent an enormous amount of time together, Biden, instead of Donald Trump and Epstein. According to his biographer, Jeffrey Epstein introduced Melania. That's how Melania, the First Lady, and the President met. Uh-oh. That sounds like an assertion of fact in a way that anyone would declare derogatory, because you're basically insinuating about the First Lady that she was, you know, an agent of, she was a girl who was associated with Epstein. In a letter addressed to Biden and his longtime lawyer, Abby Lowell, the First Lady's lawyer, Alejandro Brito, called Biden's comments false, defamatory, and lewd. Quote, given your vast history of trading on the names of others, including your surname, for your personal benefit, it is obvious that you publish these false and defamatory statements about Mrs. Trump to draw attention to yourself, Brito wrote in a letter first obtained by Fox News. Are you going to show us a copy of the letter? Because I would love to read that. First obtained. Are they going to show us? You're just giving us the Fox News. Are they going to give us the letter? They do.
In last week's podcast episode, we spoke with Judd Legum. After the episode, we received a letter from Melania Trump's lawyer. He took issue with our title of one of those YouTube videos from that episode and a couple of comments I made about the First Lady. We took a look.
You see, Fox does this. This is why I avoid links to Fox, because they exist to basically bait me with the occasional link just to make me look like a boomer. That's the only purpose they have. It's pretty evident to me. I can't prove it, you know, so I'm not making this as a factual assertion, but if you see how frequently they will just do that, blah, 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 there's a voice talking out of nowhere from me, and it's a Fox link. What other logical conclusion can anyone possibly draw than that is the reason they exist? Anyway, so let's go back to this, whatever they were saying here. They also do this closeout thing with the link when you pause it. It's really weird. Oh my God, look at this. What is happening? I didn't do that.
In last week's podcast episode, we spoke with Judd Legum. After the episode, we received a letter from Melania Trump's lawyer.
Seriously, if the Crypt Keeper went bald, it would be this guy here. What, James Carville?
Took issue with our title of one of those YouTube videos from that episode and a couple of comments I made about the First Lady. We took a look at what they complained about, and we took down the video and edited out those comments from the episode. I also take back these statements and apologize.
There you go. There you go. Because it was crap. Complete crap. We'll finish this article and then we're going to go back to the letter. So we are going to come back to the letter. So anyhow, the letter was dated August 6th and gave the younger Biden until August 7th to comply. As of Wednesday night, That specific episode, Channel 5 with Andrew Callahan, remained on YouTube. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Quote, these false, disparaging, inflammatory claims, statements are extremely salacious and have been widely disseminated through various digital mediums, the First Lady's attorney said. Indeed, the video has since been republished by various media outlets, journalists, and political commentators with millions of social media followers that have disseminated the false and defamatory statements therein to tens of millions of people worldwide. He continued, consequently, let's just get to the letter, because I feel like we're reading. I feel like I'm reading parts of the letter without actually giving you the letter. So why don't we just give you the letter? We'll do this like a lawyer would do it. Imagine that. Once I open up this link already, I might as well actually get the benefit from it. Totally going to do this on Adobe so I can close this link out before Fox kiboshes me again. We'll call this See, they're doing it. See, you hear it, right?
Create permanent brain injuries. Or
I told you, it's insanity.
Ability to have a permanent brain injury.
You suck, Fox.
You can knuckle bust. You can create brain injury.
Shut up. Shut up. Let's commence shutting up. Let's everyone begin to shut up now. All right, let's pull up this letter now. Open. All right, so I called it Humter. It's probably more appropriate to call it the Humter letter. All right. Excuse me. Where was we? Demand to retract false, defamatory, and lewd statements. Dear Mr. Biden, this law firm serves as litigation counsel for the First Lady of the United States of America, Mrs. Melania Trump, hereinafter referred to as Mrs. Trump. Please direct all future correspondence relating to this matter to my attention. This correspondence serves as a demand under Florida Statute 770.01 that you immediately retract the false, defamatory, disparaging, and inflammatory statements made about Mrs. Trump, which are contained in the video published on YouTube on August 5th, 2025, titled Hunter Biden Returns. He might have returned, but he stepped in dogwana. Failure to comply will leave Mrs. Trump with no choice but to pursue any and all legal rights and remedies available to her to recover the overwhelming financial and reputational harm that you have caused her to suffer. Should we do this like no, that's not what we're doing. Definitely not doing that. Definitely not putting my John Hancock all over it. I didn't even realize that's what the button does. See that? Look at that. There's my John Hancock right there. La 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 la. Is that considered doxing yourself? Okay. I'll get over it if I did. I'll get over it if I did. Let's draw. Let's ride. We'll do this Robert Gouveia style. So you leave us with no choice but to pursue any and all legal rights that you cause yourself for the video's defamatory statements. Here are the false statements. Epstein introduced Melania to Trump, which that is not true. The connections are like so wide and deep. Yeah, I know. I don't draw circles nearly as well as he does. Shh. He uses a pen stylus. I'm using a mouse. It's not fair. It's not. Yeah, come on. Cut an old man a break. So yeah, so that was a false statement that Epstein introduced him. And Jeffrey Epstein introduced Melania. That's how Melania, the First Lady, and the president met. Really? Epstein made the intro? Yeah, according to Michael Wolff. So you're trying to give it this little caveat thing here, but Michael Wolff had long since retracted it. So yeah, these false, disparaging, defamatory, and inflammatory statements are extremely salacious, have been widely disseminated throughout various digital mediums. Indeed, the video has since been republished. Oh, that's not good. Showing further damages by various media outlets, journalists, political commentators, with millions of social media followers. Disseminated the false and defamatory statements to tens of millions of people worldwide. Consequently, of course, Mr. Trump suffered overwhelming financial and reputational harm. Moreover, The source of your false, disparaging, defamatory, and inflammatory statements, every time they're going to refer to it by those three adjectives: disparaging, defamatory, and inflammatory. Is serious, fabulous, and notice how many letters from the word bull list here. It almost looks like the same word, fabulous. Michael Wolff, whose lies were published by the Daily Beast in the article titled Melania Trump Very Involved in Epstein Scandal. Following receipt of our cease and desist letter, demand letter just a week ago, Daily Beast issued an apology to Mrs. Trump and retracted the false and defamatory statements contained in the article by deleting it in its entirety. Despite this, you have unjustifiably relied upon Mr. Wolff's false, defamatory, disparaging, and inflammatory statements about Mrs. Trump and maliciously elected to republish them. Whether defamation is per se or per quad, and I should explain to you what those are, and I will. Both are actionable under New York and Florida law. So you might be saying, what is that? That's a whole bunch of fancy language there. So the difference between per se and per quad is that per se is you say this about any person, they would take offense. So certain things, that's one classification of defamation is per se, and a different classification is defamation per quad. Spelled like that. This is spelled correctly, not like Q-U-A-D, like the other word, but this is the Latin term Q-U-O-D. Per quad means, in this context, that in order for it to be qualified as something that is defamatory, you have to know certain particular information about the subject who you're speaking on. So, an example of something that the law has held to be defamatory per se is things that are alleging someone is lacking in integrity. Someone's a thief. That is something that anyone would find to be defamatory. But if someone says that guy is not a lawyer, that's something that many people would say is not something that's derogatory to say about them, because an element of defamation, it has to be derogatory. It's putting someone down falsely. So if someone says that guy is not a lawyer, that would not be defamation per se, because that would not be something that everyone would deem derogatory. Quite the contrary, you at home, if you're not an attorney, likely would say, if someone said about you, that woman is not a lawyer, you'd probably take that as a compliment. But if someone is, let's say, a legal podcaster and they are a lawyer, and someone says that guy is not a lawyer, that is something which, if he means it seriously, if the person's not actually a real lawyer, that's something that that could be derogatory for them and for their business. So per quad is something that you have to know something about the subject in order for this statement to be gleaned as being damaging, harmful, derogatory. The manifestation of the difference in legally, as far as defamation per se and defamation per quad, is in order for you to win, if you're suing under defamation per quad, if you say that this is not defamatory per se, but it is per quad, you need to show damages. In contrast, if the speaker says something that is defamatory per se, like someone having an STD is defamatory per se under the law. It's another example. That is something, assuming it's not true, obviously, because every defamatory statement has to be false in order for it to be viable action. So if you say someone has an STD, that's defamatory per se if it's untrue. And that is something that you would not need to show the plaintiff who's suing and saying they were falsely alleged to have that STD would not need to establish damages. They could win even without establishing damages. So any plaintiff would rather fall into the per se category because it's an easier case to win, easier to get damages. It's just a much easier ride. You can't always do it. I would say that this would, it could be up to the judge as to whether or not this would qualify under the law as being defamatory per se. I think that this is something that if it's assuming it's untrue, which I believe it to be untrue, I think anyone would be offended to say that they were introduced to Trump through Jeffrey Epstein or introduced to any person through Jeffrey Epstein. So I think this would qualify. I personally believe this would qualify as per se. But when you're writing a letter or filing an action, you always want to cover any possible outcome or any possible decision you might deal from a judge. So you sort of would list both. So I can respect the fact that Beto here is listing both of them. So whether defamation is per se or per quad, both are actionable under New York and Florida law. New York law recognizes express defamation, which involves false statements, and defamation by implication. Because this is, when someone says they were introduced by Jeffrey Epstein, why is that defamatory? It's defamatory because it's implying, it's not saying that she worked for Jeffrey Epstein or had any sort of physical relationship that relates to Jeffrey Epstein, but the implication is that he's an Epstein girl, that she's an Epstein girl, so to speak. It involves false suggestions, impressions, and implications arising from otherwise truthful statements. Interesting. So even if the statement's truthful, but if the objective in saying it was to lead to a false implication, meaning, let's imagine that he technically was the person, Epstein was technically the person who introduced Melania and Donald. But the objective in framing it in this way is to lead the viewers to draw that conclusion. So they're saying that would still be actionable under defamation law in New York. That's really interesting. That's a really interesting take. I haven't researched that. I'm going to take her. I'm going to take her word for it. Although I assume Beto is a woman, but I'm not sure. Which involves false suggestions, impressions, implications arising from otherwise truthful statements. That was reversing dismissal complaint because it stated defamation by implication claims against CNN. Florida law also recognizes cause of action for both defamation per se and defamation per quad. Even if you attempt to whitewash your conduct as simply an expression of your opinions, because that would be another way of trying to get it out. If you say I wasn't making a statement of fact, I was stating an opinion. Florida law makes clear that such defense will not absolve your liability. See Dershowitz v. Cable v. CNN, or Milkovich v. Lorraine, where they said even if the speaker states the facts upon which he bases his opinion, if those facts are either incorrect or incomplete, or his assessment of them is erroneous, statement may still imply a false assertion of fact, simply couching such statements in terms of opinion. Oh, Alejandro is probably a dude. Sorry, Brito's last name. Alejandro's probably a dude. In terms of opinion, does not dispel these implications. I had a real problem with this being the law. I don't like this being the law, but you have to work with the law that you have. I happen to think that this is kind of crazy because you're basically saying, even if someone expressly says that this is an opinion, that they still could be tantamount to engaging in making a false statement. I have a real problem with that. A statement that, although ostensibly in the form of opinion, implies the allegation of undisclosed defamatory facts as the basis of the opinion is actionable. So I guess if there is that thing like, look, I've seen stuff and I believe that, okay, I guess. Conclusion is the same under New York law. See Garcia versus Puccio. Wow. Consequently, you lack any viable defense. It's my way of saying we are going to obliterate you in courts. Any viable defense to the overwhelming reputational and financial harm you've caused Mrs. Trump to suffer. The above referenced false, defamatory, malicious, disparaging, and inflammatory statements were published to deliberately denigrate Mrs. Trump. So we're trying to basically imply you were being malicious here. That's not with malice, but yeah, the timing of this video is evident and underscores the actual malice behind the decision to publish it to give the plain falsity of your statement. Given the plain falsity of the statements, given your vast history of trading on the names of others, including your surname for your personal benefit, is obvious you publish these false and defamatory statements by Mrs. Trump to draw attention to yourself. This is in order to, the reason you put this in here, if you're Alejandro Brito, likely is to try and bolster the implications that this is for your own personal financial gain, and we're going to try and claw back whatever possible financial gain you got from making these defamatory statements. So that's why you would point out and say you're trying to draw attention to yourself. You're trying to increase the size of your microphone by engaging in making defamatory statements. And that would potentially be something that you would be throwing out there for the purpose of trying to say, this dude was financially benefiting from it. Accordingly, Mrs. Trump hereby demands that you, one, immediately issue a full and fair retraction of the video and any and all the other false, defamatory, disparaging, misleading, and inflammatory statements, and immediately issue an apology for the false, defamatory, and misleading, inflammatory statements. Moreover, please allow this letter to serve as notice to you, your affiliated entities, subsidiaries, your employees, and any other persons acting on behalf or in concert with you to preserve. You better, we're coming after you. Any and all evidence related in any way to the above mentioned malicious, false, and defamatory statements you published, and any other statements you have published regarding Mrs. Trump. By way of this letter, you're hereby directed not to destroy, conceal, or alter any paper, electronic files, physical evidence, or other data relating in any way, no matter how remote, to your false claims regarding Mrs. Trump and or the circumstances leading to their dissemination, including, but not limited to, communications between you and any third party in any way related to your wrongful claims, all your sources, and any all documents and data referring to, reflecting, or relating to communication between you and any such third parties regarding these false claims. So we need to get all of your communications on this, and any and all documents in any way related to your false claims. So we're telling you now, don't start tearing that up. Don't start burning it. Don't go all Hillary on us. Don't pull out the bleach. What do you mean, bleach me? Put it on my keyboard? Don't start doing that, because we're putting you on notice. I understand that many records and files are maintained electronically. However, this letter specifically requests that all paper and hard copy originals be maintained and preserved in their original format. By the same token, electronic documents in the storage media on which they reside may contain relevant, discoverable information beyond that which may be found in printed documents. Therefore, even where there's a paper copy exists and has been preserved, please preserve and maintain all electronically stored documents. So this way we can know when they were created. It's much easier to sort of track what happened with them in their original native format, including all metadata. This preservation demand specifically encompasses any and all electronic documents, including but not limited to all word process files, email, spreadsheets, databases, log files, and any other electronically stored generated documents or files. If you do not comply with the above request by August 7th, yikes, that was terrible. Robert Gouvet is yelling at me now. August 7th. Mrs. Trump will be left no alternative to enforce her legal and equitable rights, all of which are expressly reserved, not waived, including by filing legal action for over $1 billion in damages. You're on notice. Sounds like a lot of money. Sounds like a lot of money. I don't know that she's had $1 billion in damages. But always ask big, and you ask for the moon, and who knows? Maybe you get a mountain. Right? Right. That's how you, this is how you do it. Rifles. Okay. Join Joe's Fantasy Football League and win your money back. There you go. There you go. I'm easy money. I'm easy money. I'm the mock. I'm the mock. That's right. I am the mock. Join my Fantasy Football League. That's over at goodlogic.locals.com. It should be pinned. Did I pin it? I hope I pinned it. If I didn't pin it, I'm going to be mad at myself. I will be mad at myself if I didn't pin it. I think I pinned it. Did we pin it? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That sucker's pinned. It's pinned all the way at the top there. All right. Good. When suing, may as well go for an order of magnitude or to over what you're willing to sell for in order to leave wiggle room. 100%. 100%. You always ask for a stupidly high number. Fantasy football, let's go! By the way, the court has given Gruden the ability to sue the NFL and not go through mediation. I'm not familiar with his pending lawsuit, so I can't weigh in on that. But did he get Chuck Gruden, did he say some sort of like non-PC type of things and then face retribution from the NFL? I have a vague recollection of that. Okay. I will say this. When I was in elementary school, we used to give Indian burns were like a thing. That was a thing. That was a thing. Indian burns. I don't know how that. I said Chuck, but it is John. I'm thinking of Chucky. It's John Gruden. I'm thinking of Chucky. Everyone calls him Chucky. That's why. Yes, John Gruden. That's correct. All right. So, wanted to get that out of the way. So you're all up to date and following what's happening with this. But I will point out here, and the final thing here, Melania says 6 days have passed since Brito's deadline. So, yeah. Spokesman for the Biden said nothing. And yeah, we read the letter, so I think that's more than covering it. I was a little bit even a little bit more than I planned on spending on this. So, other thing I wanted to share with you was I wanted to talk a little bit about a couple of things that are brewing before I get into the main part, the main storylines. A couple of things that are brewing that I wanted to share with you. There was Trump putting Bondi on notice that she better get cracking.
Put them great, actually.
Well, that's too low.
Put them great, actually. We had the Russia. I had to go through the Russia hoax, and it was actually it was a strain on the relationship. I actually told them. I said, you know, they got this phony investigation going on, Russia, totally phony, created by Adam Schiff, Shifty Schiff, and Hillary Clinton and the whole group of them. And it made it very dangerous for our country because I was unable to really deal with Russia the way we should have been. I'm looking at Pam because I hope something's going to be done about it. These people put our country at great danger. And Adam Schiff, it was all made up. It was a hoax. The Mueller report came out. They all hated me. They had 18 Trump haters. And they said I did nothing wrong. They couldn't believe, they couldn't find anything after years of investigation. It was all a hoax. It was a hoax created by the Democrats, but in particular Schiff, Crooked Hillary, the whole group. And now we've learned all the stuff that's come out over the last 2 months is incredible through intelligence. And hopefully something's going to happen with it. These are people that put our country in danger. in real danger. I want to thank you all very much. Thank you very much.
So that was Trump calling out Pam Bondi and saying, get your hiney in motion and go after him. Go after Schiff and Hillary. Go get them. I don't know if she's a plant. I don't know if she's doing exactly. I don't know if she's. There's a lot of theories you can make about Pam Bondi. And I understand this theory. I'm not saying this is wrong. I don't know what a plant means unless you're saying she's a neocon plant. That's how I read this. And yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, I wasn't crazy about her under DeSantis. I wasn't that excited when I first heard her name. I was happy when she got confirmed because Trump wanted her. But it's not like she was the top of my list. Top of my list was Andrew Bailey. That's who I wanted as our AG. Andrew Bailey would have been fire. Fire. He would have been amazing. But we got Pam Bondi instead. So is she a plant? I don't know. I know this. At the very least, it's definitely true that she is terrible at her press appearances. She's just not good at that. She might be better as a lawyer or as a manager of the government's law firm, so to speak, and being the prosecutorial wing of the Trump administration. She might be great at that. I don't know. I've said from the get-go, we need to give her some time. And I meant that. And I definitely hate everything she did with Epstein from the moment she was sworn in till today. Everything she did with the Epstein story was terrible. Terrible, terrible, awful, terrible. From the release to the influencers, the statements she made about the stuff that's out there, about, on her desk and all this other stuff. Terrible, awful, fireable. That's how bad she was. I'm not going to deny that. No, I definitely agree with you that she was terrible there. She's running out of the clock is ticking in my book for her to actually start getting some serious indictments. As far as the Cash Patel and everyone, they're continually talking about and hailing her and the DOJ and the FBI for going after countless maps, countless individuals who are unknown figures. Countless individuals who are a genuine threat to society, who lurk in the shadows and have names you and I have never heard of before. So cleaning that up is significant. And it's also something that we should appreciate, which definitely seemed to be put on the back burner under the Biden administration. So that's a positive, that's a genuine positive contribution to society. But with respect to what you and I were looking for when we elected Trump, in part, was not simply removal of the Biden administration and its remnants, whether those remnants were black-haired babbling Brooks or whether those remnants were these terrible, ridiculous policies. So beyond that, we were seeking transparency and we were seeking accountability from certain big-name people. Particularly, we wanted to see that the deep state was going to be scrutinized properly and held to task for what they have done to our society. And it seems so far that that's been pretty much an outright disappointment. On the other hand, she's been spending a lot of time fighting off many of these TROs, more TROs that have been brought against Trump's policies than every president in history combined. And just the first couple of months of his administration. So and she's been very highly successful in that arena. So you have to tip your cap there. And you could say potentially a plant would not have been quite as successful because a plant might not want all these policies to go in. Who knows? Depends on what the objective of a plant is. So I struggle to label her a plant. You don't have to attribute to malice that which you can attribute to incompetence. You know what I'm saying? And I think that in certain ways she might have blind spots, incompetence, or whatever, and it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? And here's why it doesn't matter whether she's technically a plant or she's incompetent, because either you can get the job done or you can't. So if you're not able to get the job done because you don't want to get the job done because you're a plant, then you're useless. And if you can't get the job done because you're too incompetent, you're useless. So we almost don't have to sit there figuring out what the deal is with Pam Bondi. It's just a matter of, is she getting the job done satisfactorily or not? And I would agree with you. While she had some wins in getting the no names and in fighting the TROs, so the clock is ticking on the parts that you and I were looking for, right? The accountability. The clock is ticking on where the indictment's dropping on some of these more serious indictments of the Brennans and the Comeys and the Clappers and the Baracks and the Clintons and the Schiffs and the Swalwells. The evidence just keeps mounting and mounting against them. This is what Catherine Herridge put out on this topic, where she says, this is one declassified and FBI record you should not miss. The October 2017 FBI report alleges leaking by Democrats on the House Intelligence Committee was not a one-time thing. There was a systematic process for them to leak classified information. What the hell? And frankly, you have to ask yourself, is it beyond the statute of limitations? Are we able to go after these people? I don't know. 2017 is it's been more than a minute since 2017. Right? I mean, it's been more than a minute. But notes would be run up to the ranking member, Adam Schiff, after which a decision was made as to who would leak the information. Now, potentially, I guess, if you were to go for a RICO thing, as far as incorporate these as crimes that have happened, potentially, assuming you have additional crimes, you can get this within the last 5 years, I think that's possible. But this is a systematic thing. This account was given by an FBI special agent based on their conversation with the GOP House Intelligence Committee staffer. 266 pages declassified via FBI Director Cash contain multiple sources and protected disclosures about alleged leaking from 2017 to 2023. Ooh. See, now you start slipping into the statute of limitations. Yeah. Usually most of these things, statute of limitations, stuff like 5 years. So we're talking 2023. That's a whole other shebang now. We reached out to Representative Swalwell's office yesterday. On X, he claimed the October 2017 whistleblower made it up. So apparently, maybe his dealings with Fang Fang, maybe it wasn't an accident. I don't know. He's that sloppy with classified records. Senator Adam Schiff has reportedly called the records a smear as well as absolute and categorically false. Let's make this image a little bigger so we can get a closer look at it. Let's get a closer look so we're all on the same page. FBI electronic communication from Washington Field Office, Supervisor Agent, FBI Liaison. Earlier that day, Blank had spoken with an unnamed Republican staffer for HPSCI. The staffer who described the sudden firing of a minority staffer named Blank. The staffer told Blank that he worked with the committee for about 12 years and he had much technology used by the minority was suddenly fired due to perceived lack of party loyalty. So apparently they seem to have punished this whistleblower, I guess. I think that's what they're trying to imply. You see, I almost didn't cover this tonight because I was reading this and I was like, I don't know that I'm taking from this the impact that I'm supposed to be taking from this. Rational sound plausible staffer. Here we go. According to account given Oh, so in response, Blank told the staffer he had been fired because there was an expectation of leaking and he refused to participate. Described a systematic process through which the leaks were affected. Staffer did not press Blank for details. According to the account given to Blank, the staffer met with someone for a drink later that evening, during which they provided the same detailed description of the leaking process within the HPSCI meeting. Emphasizes this was not a one-time thing. In the system established by Blank, notes would be run up to the ranking member Adam Schiff, after which a decision was made as to who would leak the information. Blank alleged that this process remained in place under the minority staff director who succeeded him, though two other minority staffers, Blank and Blank, also refused to leak. So I didn't see this part before. The first one, I look at the second one. This is, so there you go. There's a system in place here. We have to go after these people. We have to go after these people. And the clock is ticking in my mind on Pam Bondi. I'm willing to give her like another 2 months. I'm hoping that she doesn't disappoint. But I mean, how much more do you need, right? Between Tulsi Gabbard's drops, why we should be seeing indictments of Brennan Clapper Comey and Barack, if you ask me. We should be seeing indictments of Clinton. We should be seeing indictments of all these people. Speaking of Clinton. Here's John Solomon on that. For this one, I have a second clip that I sort of need to dig up. I saw it this evening, and this is the first clip I'd pulled up.
You've got more coming tomorrow, I understand, John. What can you tell us today about what we're going to read tomorrow?
Yeah, let's give you another line. So part of this process is that Republicans find themselves in a weaponized investigation. They didn't commit what they're accused of, but they're defending against it. The process becomes the punishment. Hillary Clinton's got an email problem. There is a Russia collusion thing jumped on Trump. Hunter Biden's got a corruption problem. Donald Trump has impeachment. Joe Biden has classified documents in his garage and in his UPenn office. Donald Trump gets raided for classified documents. One of the elements that we haven't spent a lot of time talking about, which actually was the largest obsession of the FBI and the largest frustration of the FBI during the Comey years, was the FBI's efforts to potentially investigate and prosecute Hillary Clinton for corruption via her Clinton Foundation. Tomorrow, we're going to make public for everybody a bombshell timeline, a lengthy memo that goes in great and painful and excruciating detail all the ways that the Justice Department under Barack Obama and some of James Comey's deputies went to stop agents from legitimately investigating predicated corruption investigation against Hillary Clinton, looking at money and decisions she made. Money goes to the foundation, decisions are made. They thought they saw a pattern, not one office, not two offices, 3 separate offices of the FBI. They were politically obstructed. You're going to know the names, the terms, the dates on which all that obstruction occurred by tomorrow morning.
So that's what John Solomon is promising us. Now, I will say that to the extent that you think that this might be actionable, certainly with respect to Barack Obama, I would respectfully submit that I do think that that's an area that he has absolute immunity. Meaning, to the extent that he's the head of the executive branch, and he directs them, I don't want you going after person X. I think that that is his prerogative, that he has absolute immunity, because conversations between the president and the DOJ about who they should or should not be investigating, that is precisely an area which on the Trump v. USA, that it's his exclusive domain, and it's part of his constitutional core duties. So I do think that if you're thinking that this is a smoking gun which would enable us to prosecute Barack Obama, I think this is an area that I would argue, much like if when he bombs someone abroad through a drone strike, that I think that he has absolute immunity. This too is an area where he's presumably carrying out his executive function in an area that he has exclusive control, part of his core constitutional powers, and I don't think that he would be prosecutable. That's my personal legal take as far as going after Barack Obama for quashing investigations into Hillary Clinton. And if you think about it in this context, that were she charged, he would have full authority and to pardon her of those charges. So you can understand how it is that he also has authority to decide who's going to be investigated. Right? So in that sense, much as I hate to say it, much as I think that they're both corrupt, evil piles of dirt, I have to hold true to like what our system provides for and what it should provide for. And this is an area that the president should have immunity. And much as I want Donald Trump to have immunity, if he were to make decisions about who to investigate, we have to recognize that Barack Obama gets the same immunity as well, even if it's borderline treasonous. But this was the follow-up report from John Solomon.
Tonight, we're going to tell you about the other Clinton investigation, one that was running in 3 separate FBI offices, New York, Washington, and Little Rock. It was a predicated criminal investigation that was examining whether Hillary Clinton ran a pay-to-play scheme that delivered favors from her perch as Secretary of State, while foreigners and others paid large sums of money to her family foundation, the Clinton Foundation, run by Bill Clinton and their daughter, eventually Chelsea Clinton. 3 separate agencies, 3 separate bureaus, offices of the FBI believe they had predicated evidence to pursue that. Every time they tried to move the ball down the road in the shadows of the 2016 election, they got shut down. I mean, they got shut down at the highest levels of their agency. Andrew McCabe, the deputy director, a man who potentially had a conflict of interest with Hillary Clinton. His wife got money from Hillary Clinton's former campaign chair to run.
And this is helpful as far as establishing the levels of corruption that we're dealing with the Democrats. But again, you tell me who would be prosecuted for this.
For a Virginia State Senate. And by the way, McCabe attended the meeting where that assistance was solicited. He eventually was conflicted out, but not before he gave the order to his agents that you won't investigate or do anything on this.
Neither. I look like money.
What's some?
Well, that's not good. Yeah, I apologize for that. Give me a moment. That's not what I want. Yeah. I blame Fox, okay? I blame Fox. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I'm supposed to be talking. I know that's part. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm sure it's hilarious. Mm. I know what happened. I'm kind of afraid that that's going to keep going. All right. I know none of you hear it. I removed it from you guys, but Lord, that was painful. That was painful. I apologize. No, I didn't find it, but it ended. So mercifully. Let's go back a little bit here so we're caught up here. As he's breaking down He's breaking down the corruption.
And at the meeting where that assistance was solicited, he eventually was conflicted out, but not before he gave the order to his agents that you won't investigate or do anything on this unless I approve it. Downstream from them, four different U.S. attorneys' offices under Barack Obama were asked for help by the agents. Agents need help. We need a grand juror. We need to get evidence. We want to move the case down the road. All three of those four offices told the agents, you're on your own. We will not assist you in your pursuit of criminal charges against Hillary Clinton. And then perhaps the most extraordinary statement in the document that we are going to show you on screen now, they can put it up as you're looking here. The Deputy Attorney General for Barack Obama, Sally Yates, explicitly told the FBI, shut it down, meaning the corruption probes of Hillary Clinton. Think about this. While Donald Trump was out on the campaign trail chanting, lock her up, maybe there was a good reason to lock up Hillary Clinton, he would argue every night. The Obama Justice Department was telling the FBI agents who also thought there might be a reason to lock up Hillary Clinton, shut it down. Remember those words. We have a lot more up for you. In a second, we're going to bring in Senator Ron Johnson, someone who's been instrumental in exposing so much of this incredible dirty scheme in Washington. But
yeah, okay,
one
fine.
last piece of note before I bring in Amanda. We have now confirmed tonight there are some prosecutors who have come forward and are willing to cooperate with Attorney General Pam Bondi and, of course, FBI Director Kash Patel, who found this document.
To do what are they going to do? Who? Tell me what. Tell me who you're charging here. I mean, it's not treason.
He found this document based on some whistleblowers that Justin News had. He went and got it. He has other emails that he's going to be turning over to Congress that I think will further this narrative. This is the beginning, but we told you this was a double-headed scandal. The first part was pursuing false allegations against Republicans. The second was forming a protection racket around Democrats like Hillary Clinton and Biden family and others, Joe Biden himself, when it came to classified documents. Right?
So this is the sort of thing that I'm just like, okay, yeah, no, is it scandalous? Yes. Is there anything that can be done about it now, 8-9 years later? Is there anything that this statute of limitations hasn't completely run on? Who are you going after? I mean, I guess if you can go after Hillary herself for her pay to play, I don't even know that that's within the statute of limitations. So I don't know. Look, if you can get an ongoing conspiracy, okay, and you can show this cover up, okay, maybe this is a way of baiting them out into, like, you know, lying to police and stuff like that in order to keep the conspiracy going. Maybe I'm trying to find some way. It's frustrating because I think all these wretched scumballs should be like rotting. We should like invent a new prison system, which actually has, it looks like it's like straight out of Les Mis, where, like, you know, people are walking in chains and shuffling along, and that's where these jackals belong. All of these Democrat elitist scum. That's where they belong. Okay, that we should have a new system that everyone, men and women, are growing long beards for the crimes that they commit against our society. Okay, that would not be cruel and unusual punishment. That would just be like, no, that's what you deserve. That's man meting out justice. That's what we should implement for these people. That's what they deserve. So no one should mistakenly assume that I think that these scum are anything less than the maggot-infested piles of rotting meat that you all see them to be. I see it too, but the lawyer part of me basically looks at it as like, how do we get them? Like how are we getting them? So I guess the humiliation, but you know, then these people feel no shame, and they're just going to lie. They feel no shame, and their stupid sycophant followers will just be like, "Oh, it's all just a bunch of Republican lies. We don't believe any of this." So, and then the other side is just like, "We already knew. Everyone knew. How did you not know? How did you not know that Hillary's scandal, Rodham Clinton, has more scandals?" How would anyone, like, who wouldn't put, who doesn't have a bingo card with that? That's like the free space on your bingo card right there. Right? I mean, it has to be. There's always more Hillary scandals. There's always more. Whatever we think we know, there are always more Hillary scandals. Yeah, I think it's correct to label Biden the most corrupt president we ever had, but she might be the most corrupt politician ever. She really might. She never made president, thank God, but wow. Will you accept worthless? Oh, for Bondi? Yeah, okay, I'll take that. Check the ghetto. I'm fired up. Yeah, okay, I'm coming. I'm coming there. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Wow, I gotta hit the horn for this guy. JH coming in strong. JH. Let me pull it up. I'm gonna pull this up on screen because it's $100 super chat. It deserves to be pulled up on screen. If someone gives me a link, I'll tell you how accurate or inaccurate. A link and a timestamp. I need a link and a timestamp. All right, JH. If you want to give me a link and a timestamp, I will address what I will go after the show. I'll extend this show just out of gratitude, just out of respect for you. Okay. I will when I'm done covering the stories I want to cover tonight. Whatever time that is, it probably be on 2 hours. When I get there, send me a DM with the link and a timestamp for when the conversation starts about this. And we will cover this super chat that he brought up here, which is, okay, I know you can't do it right now, but please go to Timcast IRL and explain to me what the hell this Jew guy is talking about. Red heifer, bring back Jesus. Someone else referenced the clip to me and asked me to check out how accurate it was. I don't remember where I saw it, but I remember seeing someone say something about guy on Timcast talking about red heifer. I have talked about the red heifer on occasion. It's come up here or there. It has come up. I will review. I'll see what this guy's talking about and whether or not I agree with him. But who is this guy? Here's the YouTube link. It's safe for tonight's show on Timcast. I saw a guy with an oversized yarmulke on his Timcast. I'll go there in a second. Go to times. I'll look at this. 121 for you. It was an hour and 20 in when this came up. What the F? Okay. As well do. What? That link isn't working. I clicked your link and this is what came up. What is this? JH, what are you doing to me? Attackers might be trying to steal your information from. Oh, I think you put a T. I think that's what it was. I think there was an extra T here. Why? Okay, that's not working. Try this one more time. There it is. You want me to go an hour and 20 in? I'm not doing this right now. I'll try to come back to this later.
Talking about the return of Return of the Mac. Here.
I don't know who this guy is. I have no idea who this guy is. But I will listen to what he said. We'll try to cover that. Okay. Someone, for the love of God, remind me. Joe, throwing this out there on Locust for those who don't like football. I put up a fantasy hockey league on Yahoo. 12 teams head to head. I'm not a hockey guy. I used to be. Okay. One time in my life, I did a hockey fantasy hockey league thing for the playoffs. If you want to know how old it was, narrow down the year. You want to know how long I've been doing this fantasy stuff? I kicked butt. I kicked butt in that playoff thing. My only time ever doing this. And the star of my team was Mark Messier. So if that doesn't date it, star of my team was Mark Messier, and he was still on the Oilers. And Gretzky was playing for the Kings. And I think he had like 25 points in like 12 games, Mark Messier. He was on fire. Dude was an animal. So, yeah. That's pretty much the last time. Well, no, I would say in the 90s I followed hockey a little bit, but I think after LaFontaine retired, I think I was done with hockey. So, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, let me catch up on the rest of this. Debrief the whistleblowers and snitches. Get 371 conspiracy, 1-page indictment, and supersede as the other crimes come in and cooperate. It ain't that hard. So like I said, if you can get conspiracy, that's possible. That's possible. I would love to see that. Love to see that. Rifles was your Hatfield McCoys. Oh, that was this thing here. Thank you for clarifying that. I was talking about that's if you came late, which the vast majority of you did, early on when I was covering the prospect of Melania Trump suing Hunter Biden and relishing the title of that case being Trump v. Biden, but not involving Donald or Joe. Melania Trump versus Hunter Biden. Give me Hunt! Barnes calls her pay-for-play Pam. He cites 3 examples in tonight's Bourbon with Barnes. One is the pardon for Nicola Carr dude. Her brother is his lawyer. Yee. That's not looking thing. That's not looking good. Never-ending story, nothingness. Right. Okay. Never-ending story. You're very welcome, JH. Thank you for your amazing support. And I hope I'll be able to do a decent job with that. So now you guys know. That's what we have right there. You want to get me to cover a topic and add it into the show? Send me $100 super chat. It's hard for me to say no, especially if it's something I feel like I'm kind of well suited to actually weigh in on. Okay, let's get into our main featured topics because I think I can close this thing out. Yes, I can close out. This whole thing here. All right, we're done with that. Close this out. Let's get into our main featured topics, which are Beto O'Rourke, Ken Paxton versus Beto O'Rourke, and oh, where's my click on this? Oh, there's one more. All right, well, I'll find it before we go. Let's start with Beto O'Rourke. I didn't write the rules. I will tell you that someone remind me later when I'm talking about the red heifer. I'll probably remember that it is the chok of our that is specifically referenced in Torah. The chok. I'll explain to you what that means later on when I get to the red heifer part of this. When I get to the red heifer part of the show, that was an unexpected journey that we're going to be going down. So let's talk about what's going on between Beto O'Rourke and Ken Paxton, because this fight is kind of delicious. Kind of delicious. All right. Some of you may remember Beto O'Rourke. He was a Texan, I think from El Paso, who is all down with being with the cool kids. You know, I picture that actor Ed Buscemi. Is it Steve Buscemi? Steve Buscemi with the backward hat and say, "What up, fellow teens? What up, fellow kids?" The skateboard. This dude here, he's 3 years younger than me. He's talking like all the cool kids. Yeah, all the cool kids. Yeah. It's here's Beto O'Rourke last week.
Absolutely. And I just think it's super clear that Republicans care about power and nothing else. And for far too long, Democrats have cared about being right, coloring within the lines, following rules.
Yeah.
And power has always been a secondary consideration. We need
secondary consideration. Yeah. 4 different indictments brought down against Donald Trump. Secondary. Firing anyone who wasn't following their mandates. Secondary power. Power secondary. The worst violations of First Amendment rights under the Biden administration. Power secondary. Weaponizing the IRS. Mr. Barack Obama. Power secondary. We play within the rules. Russiagate. We play within the rules. Lunatic. Oh, that's what we're famous for. Jackass. You started this gerrymandering war. This is what he's bitching and moaning about. You guys started. Now, I said Republicans have done it a lot also, but Democrats have gotten so many added seats already because of gerrymandering. Look at California. Look at Illinois. Look at how in Massachusetts there's zero Republican congressmen. Zero. Lunacy.
We need to absolutely flip that around and focus on power exclusively. It's why I'm encouraged by what I'm hearing by Governor Newsom in California, Governor Pritzker in Illinois, even Governor Hochul in New York. They're talking about seizing the initiative and redrawing their congressional boundaries to maximize Democratic Party advantage. We got to fight fire with fire. I mean, we wish the refs were going to call the fouls, that there were going to be penalties for what they are doing right now, but the refs have left the arena.
Yeah, or corrupted.
Or corrupt. Look at this lunatic. Look at this lunatic. They always... literally looks like he looks like he's sitting on a hot steel bar right now.
And to fight this out and to win, we got to be focused on it. Absolutely. And I just think it's.
Hey, I never remember this guy's name. I don't remember his name. Please don't tell me. Please do not tell me. But yeah, I'll just call him Token. MSNBC Token. MSNBC's Token. So that's what we had. That's what we had. This story has a lot more developments since then. So, in case you missed it, we've been talking last week about how the House Democrats in Texas fled the House in order to deprive the House of having a quorum, so that they wouldn't be able to vote on their redistricting maps, which are slated to benefit the Republicans in the 2026 elections by up to 5 seats through their gerrymandering, through Republican gerrymandering. Let's call a spade, because let's speak plainly. Republicans in Texas are attempting to gerrymander to maximize the number of seats that the Republican seats that they can stuff into the House for the next election. So that's definitely what the agenda is. There's the Democrats have been playing that game for a long time, and the Republicans have played this game in the past as well. It's something that the Supreme Court refuses to be refs on. In that sense, he's correct. In that sense, he is correct. But Attorney General Ken Paxton, who would have been another great choice in place of Pam Bondi. He would have been a phenomenal choice over Pam Bondi. So he wrote, breaking, I sued Robert Francis O'Rourke for Beto bribes to Democrat runaways to impede the Texas legislature. What are Beto bribes? So Beto O'Rourke has far more national popularity and acclaim amongst Democrats than your typical member of the House. So, of the Texas House, we're talking state legislators. So can you name a single Democrat state legislator, or could you at least a week ago? Maybe now you can name a couple of them because of their little tantrum they pulled. But Beto O'Rourke has been on the national scene for a long time. So if you want to fundraise, Beto O'Rourke's the face and the voice you use because he's the best known one. So that's what they basically did. And that's why he's calling it Beto bribes. I will not allow failed political has-beens to buy off Texas elected officials. I will see you in court, Beto. And this is what he wrote. This is back on August 8th, 5 days ago. Attorney General Ken Paxton. I'm going to make this bigger. This is not popping up. There you go. Attorney General Ken Paxton has sued Robert Francis O'Rourke, and notice how he goes by Beto. Beto, yeah, he gets hit on that a little bit because he basically went with the name Beto, figuring that it'll appeal to more of his Latino voters. So yeah, the name O'Rourke is not a dead giveaway that this guy is completely Irish. So he's like, oh, Beto, people will think I'm Hispanic. So he sued Robert Francis O'Rourke. That's why Ken Paxton specifically calls him that rather than Beto. And his radical organization, Powered by People, for unlawful fundraising activity, including potentially operating a misleading financial influence scheme to fund runaway Democrats who fled Texas to break quorum. Quote, Democrat runaways are likely accepting Beto bribes to underwrite their jet-setting sideshow in far-flung places and misleadingly raising political funds to pay for personal expenses, said Attorney General Paxton. This out-of-state cowardly cabal is abandoning their constitutional duties. I will not allow failed political has-beens to buy off Texas elected officials. I'll see you in court, Beto. O'Rourke and Powered by People intentionally misled donors to fund runaway Democrats' personal expenses despite advertising it as political fundraising. By knowingly blurring the distinction, O'Rourke and Powered by People sought to take advantage of uninformed donors by directing them to explicitly political fundraising platforms, all while intending to use the funds for purposes they understood to be constituted as personal expenditures. Can't use on your personal expenditures. Texas law prohibits organizations from engaging in false, misleading, and deceptive acts, such as the fundraising scheme operated by O'Rourke and Powered by People. Attorney General Paxton has requested a TRO and an injunction preventing O'Rourke and Powered by People from continuing to raise and or distribute money for the purposes of funding the runaway Democrat House members. Attorney General Paxton previously demanded documents from Powered by People and opened an investigation into a Soros-funded group that is also underwriting the quorum break. So that's where this story was at. And then we follow up with him actually getting the TRO. So is this the link that I had for that? And as reported by Amuse, a source that I rely on heavily and I highly recommend following. On Friday, a Fort Worth judge ordered Beto to stop raising money for the rogue House Democrats. On Saturday, Beto went to Fort Worth and told the judge the rules don't apply to him. So Ken Paxton got his TRO. Beto O'Rourke said, I don't care, and proceeded to raise money violating her order. Listen to Beto's vulgarity-laced speech where he explains to Judge Megan to Judge Megan Fay, quote, "There are no refs in this game. F the rules. We're going to win whatever it takes."
I was sued by Ken Paxton not once, but twice this week. But we didn't react. We didn't respond. We didn't defend. We took this fight right back to him, and we sued him in court in El Paso, Texas. He tried.
That didn't work.
He tried to stop us from holding this rally here today in Fort Worth. He tried to stop us.
He didn't try. He did.
From raising money to support these Democrats in the fight. He lost. And one of the
No, he didn't.
worst things that we could do to Ken Paxton is to right now choose to donate to have the backs of these fighters by texting FIGHT to 20377. Text FIGHT to 20377. He is trying to stop us from raising the resources they need to ultimately prevail and come through, and we are not going to let him stop us. Are you with me on that? Ándale. It also means, as
So stupid.
Mark was saying earlier, we don't await the punch thrown by these would-be fascists to land. We punch first, and we punch harder. We want California and New Jersey and Illinois and Maryland and every other state where the Democrats hold the governor's mansion, the assembly, and the state senate to redraw their congressional districts now, not wait for Texas to move first, to maximize Democratic Party advantage. Listen, you may say to yourself, well, those aren't the rules. There are no refs in this game. Fuck the rules. We are going to win whatever it takes.
Wow. Wow. What an infant. Yeah. So that's what he said. But there's more to this story. Of course. Of course. Of course. There's more to this story. So, yesterday, we had this come out. Beto told me to come and take it, so I did, and beat him in court, because that's what Ken Paxton does. You see, note to Pam Bondi, get wins. Get wins over people who we're looking for you to get wins over. It's important. It's important. Now he still thinks he's above the law, so I'm working to put him behind bars. He's quote tweeting, "Lock him up." Texas AG Ken Paxton is formally seeking the arrest of Beto O'Rourke for Beto's alleged violation of a court order banning him from fundraising for Texas State House Democrat fugitives. Paxton has filed a motion for contempt of court against O'Rourke. Max sentence for that is $500 fine and or 6 months in jail. Paxton on Beto, I'm working to put him behind bars. Wow. Wow. And there's more on this. Here's Greg Abbott explains why he said Beto O'Rourke should be arrested. He suggested he would give all the House members who evaded Austin money to support them. This is what you call quid pro quo. That would be bribery. That's a second-degree felony in the state of Texas. Uh-oh. Let's hear it from Greg Abbott himself.
You said that Beto should be arrested over his fundraising for Democrats on the run. What law did he break?
So first, let me tell you what he said, and I'll tell you what law that he broke. And I am quoting to you what I saw and actually posted on my X account of what Beto said in writing, and at least it was in quotations.
Okay.
No. Shame on you. Do not do that. That is bad. That's a crime, and it should be a crime. No one should be doing that to Beto O'Rourke. Please. I pulled that up there to say no. No. Definitely not. Don't even suggest that. Don't even joke about that. I know you think it's funny. Don't even joke about that. Just no. That's a crime. It's a terrible crime. It should be a higher crime than it is. Do not do that. I won't even say the words out loud. What I just pulled up on screen Don't do that. Just don't. Don't. If you were just listening and not watching, I guess you can scroll back. But whatever it is that I'm saying there, that's what should not be happening. Are you saying the government? Okay. It's too close. It's too close. it was too close. And I wanted to be clear that my audience should not take that to heart. Yeah. Anyway, let's listen to Governor Abbott.
And actually posted on my X account of what Beto said in writing, and at least it was in quotations.
Okay.
And that is, he suggested that if these Texas Democrats were to skip the vote, not vote, break quorum, meaning not uphold their responsibility to say in the legislative session, then he would give all of the House members who evaded Austin money to support them. So this is what you call a quid pro quo, if that's exactly what happened. So, Glenn, that would be bribery if that's what took place. And that is a second-degree felony in the state of Texas. And I pointed it out in part for him, but really aiming the target at the Texas House members because it exposes these Texas Democrat House members who ran away to charges of bribery, but also that charge of bribery would be grounds for them to actually have forfeited their Texas House seat that would vacate it and allow us to fill it.
So there you go. There you go. And here is Attorney General Ken Paxton saying, I just beat Robert again. An El Paso judge rejected Beto's attempt to forum shop his way out of Tarrant County. Our TRO against his deceptive fundraising remains in effect. Accountability is coming. And now an El Paso judge has abated the TRO motion in Beto O'Rourke's Power by People's countersuit against Ken Paxton, pushing proceedings off until after 8/14 hearing in Paxton's Tarrant County suit against Beto. So what does this mean? It means that Ken Paxton took him to court and got his TRO in County A. Beto O'Rourke said, oh, if I find a judge in El Paso, they'll probably be more amenable to my desires. They'll probably be a little bit more conciliatory to what I'm looking for here. So let me try bringing this in El Paso. Ken Paxton went in there and fought in El Paso. I haven't had a chance to look through his papers, but he likely made the argument, you can't do this now. There's already a judge. You can't go to a different county once we're here in Tarrant County. You can't now all of a sudden bring this up into El Paso. That doesn't make any sense. And the judge was like, oh, yeah, that's probably true. That's true. So here's the order. On August 13, 2025, the court held an in-person hearing to consider plaintiff Power by People's application for a TRO and defending Ken Paxton's oral request to abate the proceedings in response. After considering the pleadings, the attachments, affidavits, and arguments, counsel, the court hereby abates this proceeding, meaning over. We're done with the El Paso case. El Paso case, goodbye. After considering the pleadings, attachments, and arguments, counsel court hereby abates this proceedings pending decision of the 348th Judicial District Court in Tarrant County, a proper venue and jurisdiction in its related filing proceeding at a hearing on August 14th. This matter will be set for a status hearing on Monday, August 18th at 1:30 p.m. Plaintiff's application for TRO and defendant's plea to the jurisdiction will also be considered at that time. So there you go. There you go. Trust me, the money dries up. The Democrats come running back home. They come running. They come running. They come running. So great job, Ken Paxton. Here is Ken Paxton talking about Beto O'Rourke. Let's hear him weighing in on this. You know, a clip of him.
Or is there a bigger reason?
No, that's pretty much it. You saw it right there. There was already a temporary restraining order that stopped him from raising money. And he was at that rally clearly raising money for not political reasons, which would have been appropriate. He was raising it for personal expenses to help these Democrats in Texas evade their responsibilities. That's the problem. And he was ordered by a judge to stop fundraising. And he said, basically he just continued to do it.
So Beto is responding to your threats to put him in jail. He says, quote, he's lying you about me to try and silence us. We alerted the court that the AG's office blatantly lied in its filing. We're seeking a maximum sanction in response to his abuse of office, taking the fight directly to this corrupt, lying thug. He also says that you're trying to intimidate him because he's a political rival. What is your response to that?
Well, I mean, thug is really when he gets kind of nasty. He uses that word a lot. But the reality is, you heard his words. The judge gave him a direct order, which was you can no longer fundraise. And in his rally, he clearly violated that order. It's not even questionable. So, look, we're just following the law. He is not following the law. And that's where his problems lie, not with me. My job is to enforce the law. And that's exactly what I plan on doing.
Well, it seems like the Democrats who fled are trying now to obey the law. It seems like, according to ABC News, that Democrats are going to return to Texas because they feel they've accomplished their mission of killing the first special session, raising awareness, and sparking national backlash about the mid-decade redistricting. So, A, have they won their battle? And B, do you expect them to get back to work instead of having to arrest them?
Look, I don't know if they've won their battle. The reality is the goal here is to redistrict. We're going to do it. They delayed it by, maybe a month. So I don't consider that a victory. I suppose they got some national attention. I don't know that it was all good national attention. I think most Texans found it reprehensible that they left the state and didn't fight like you would normally do in legislative session, not in Illinois and all these other states that actually have already gerrymandered by large margins. So it's a little ironic and a little hypocritical to laud these other states that you went to and say that somehow Texas is doing something wrong.
Well, I think, it's interesting to see Beto back on the political field after he lost so many elections.
Nice little dig. Little hat tip to my locals crew. All right, so there you go. Beto O'Rourke, the joke that he is, trying to seem really tough. He looks more like a podcaster to me when I hear him talk. He's really a podcaster. That's what he is. He's a podcaster trying to win an election. This is why when people tell me to run, I'm like, it wouldn't look right. You wouldn't want to see it. You wouldn't want to see it. Trust me. Allegan News saying, Beto ate dirt after losing Ted Cruz. I chose a non-Fox News source for you, Boomer, who can't turn off autoplay or use Brave. That's right. But I'm already past. We already moved on. Kimmy Hunt says, missing some context. Fifth Circuit ruled 4 Texas congressional districts unconstitutional and have to be redistricted because they were drawn on racial lines per Harmeet Dillon on Mark Halperin show. So I did cover this last week. I even walked everyone through what Harmeet Dillon was saying, and I explained the law on this. And you are correct that in around January 2024, there was a decision by the Fifth Circuit which said that they're no longer going to accept a collective to establish a special majority district. And accordingly, based on that, Harmeet Dillon notified Abbott that you got to draw up new lines because these special districts you have are essentially race discrimination. Meaning, and I'll just break it down for you very quickly. Okay. Under the 1965 Voting Rights Act, if you have an area which in that geographic area, the majority of the people overall are folks who are minorities. So, the majority of people in a particular area are minorities. You cannot gerrymander away from them so that they get nothing. And you have to create a special district, which is called a special majority district, so that they actually are able to obtain representation. So those are called special majority districts. Somewhere along the way, there was a case, I think in the 70s or 80s, which basically said, let's say in an area you don't have majority that are minority A, but you have a majority that are, but if you take minority A and B and sometimes C and you put them together, they would be the majority. What happens there? Well, we say they also need to have a special majority district. We're going to count it as if the blend, and typically the way this happens, so I'll use this as the example. So let's say you have in one part of a county, you have it's a city which is mostly black people, and then you have another part of the county 20 miles away, a city which is mostly Hispanic. Then we're going to say, well, since they tend to vote the same and they're both minorities and they're in the same county, so you have to sort of put them together. They're considered a special majority, a special majority because collectively they are the majority. If we look at this whole county, let's imagine that 28% of the county is black, and then you look at the other. And you also have 30% Hispanic. So now between them, you have 58% are minorities. So let's take that, but we'll take the 28% and the 30% and look at them together and now say, oh, look, the majority of people here are minorities. So that was what the case said. And ultimately, that was overturned in January 2024. Now, because of that case, a lot of states had to engage in special majority districting in order to enable them to basically have the representation that they're claiming. And let's face it, the Democrats were diehard fans of this because the minorities tend to vote Democrat. So they wanted as many special majority districts as possible. So they were very happy with that law in the 70s and 80s because that really helped out their cause. This decision from the Fifth Circuit, which it came out of Louisiana, but Texas is in the Fifth Circuit. That case basically says that's no longer the law in this circuit, which means Texas now can no longer have a special majority, which is comprised of two different minorities. It's got to be only one. So now, because of that, and what do they recognize? They recognize that this is being racist against white people, because you're basically saying, well, we're going to try and find some way to help them out. And the whole rule in general is kind of racist in the 21st century. You can understand 1965, why they would need to have a special majority rule. To think that anyone is actually going to be saying, let's get the minorities in 2025 is kind of cuckoo. But that's the law in the books. It takes a while for these things to change. So yeah, the idea was basically, now this really hurts the Democrats because they love having these special majority districts. And anytime they can find an excuse that, no, this also is another reason a special majority, they're going to be all for that. So after this law came out, so now once Trump came into office, Harmeet Dillon, who is charged with ensuring that there's compliance with, racism and things that are reverse racism, she notified Greg Abbott, hey, you got all these districts, which are special majority districts, which are not supposed to be special majority districts because you only got to them being a majority by taking two different minorities and putting them together. So you have to get rid of those. So that's why they redrew the lines. So Kimmy Hunt is 100% correct in this. However, once they were doing the redistricting, they basically were like, how do we basically maximize this in a way to get as many House seats as possible? So it is gerrymandering. There's a reason to engage in the gerrymandering in 2025, even though this stuff tends to come up in the beginning part of a decade after there's a new census. But that's why it's coming up now. I appreciate you highlighting that because it's an important thing to understand, but it still is gerrymandered, designed to try and do whatever they can to stuff as many Republican seats into the House. So we have to, like I said, you have to call a spade a spade. So all right. And finally, what I wanted to bring down for you tonight was Gavin Newsom. Gruesome Newsom. Where's that? It's not this one. But don't worry, I didn't forget about you, JH. We're going to do the red heifer thing afterwards. We're going to tack that on. We're tacking that on. So Gavin Newsom has threatened. Oh, see, I knew there was something before I got into this I wanted to share with you. This was important to give context to what my title here, because this was funny. Why don't I see? Hold on a second. I need to find something here that I know I saved. I see. This is it. Okay, here it is. We need to talk for a minute about what Abby Phillips did for Donald Trump. In order to do this story justice, we want to do justice for this story. It's a phrase my sister would use.
When it comes to your internet, don't take slow for an answer.
That wasn't a mistake. That was just an advertisement that popped up when I wanted to pull up this clip here. So I knew that was coming. All right, let's. Yeah, okay, we got it. Yeah, we got it. Okay, and there you go.
Good evening. I'm Abby Phillip in New York. Let's get right to what America's talking about. Donald Trump makes himself Batman, and the nation's capital is Gotham City. The president of the United States has declared himself crime fighter in chief, and he's taking over Washington's police force. It is a move that the D.C. mayor is calling unsettling and unprecedented. Now, Trump is painting it as an emergency, that D.C. is a hellhole, but he and his administration are contradicting themselves with all of this. You'll first hear Trump today, and then the following sound doesn't quite back that up.
All right, well, yeah. The point here was that she labeled him Batman and crime fighter in chief, which has backfired for CNN. Abby Phillip has provided Donald Trump a new nickname, albeit accidentally, and one of his supporters quickly embraced. The CNN Newsnight host has been introducing a segment centered around Trump's deployment of federal troops to D.C. on Monday when she compared the conservative to Batman and the municipality to Gotham City. Phillips, in turn, told Scott Jennings, Tara Satmeyer, Ben Ferguson, and Dan Coe, the president of the United States has declared himself crime fighter in chief. He's taken over Washington's force, we heard. Okay. Here's Pam Bondi. Vigilante justice, Trump dressed up as Batman patrols streets of D.C. That's hilarious. Yeah. Abby Phillips attempts to ride President Trump by calling Batman. Donald Trump makes himself Batman. Does she know that makes him sound awesome? It really does. Conservative pundit Steve Guest thought the comparison to DC's Cape Crusader made Trump look cool, even if it was not Abby's intention at all. The conservative media watchdog group Media Research Center's investigation team Newsbusters added, does she know that makes him sound awesome? Others embraced the epithet with memes, including some showing Trump in costume as the comic book character. I already voted for him. You don't have to keep convincing me, Libs of TikTok's X account joked. You're really trying to make real Donald Trump look even more badass, aren't you? Abby Phillip asked someone else. Others shared a clip of 2015 interaction between them, a then campaigning Trump and a young boy on his helicopter. Are you Batman? The boy asked. I am Batman. I'm Batman. I'm Batman. I'm Batman. So, yes, that is what I was basing my thumbnail on tonight. In case you missed, I don't know if you got to see the updated thumbnail. That was the updated thumbnail. I was very pleased to add this in. I didn't think of this when I first put up the thumbnail. I was like, oh man, The bat signal is so cool. That's everything. That's everything. It changes the whole thumbnail. Like without it, it's just not the same. Look at it. It's just not the same. So much better. So anyhow, the memes are coming out. And anyway, they start talking about that story, which I've already covered. So I wanted to start by sharing with you why it is I reference Newsom taking on Batman, and that's because Newsom said that he is going to end Trump's presidency. If you go through with this Texas thing, I'm ending your presidency. So let's go back a little bit to his threats. This is from Jeffrey Mead, who's a conservative influencer, I guess, who's frequently shared by Elon Musk. Gavin Newsom says democracy at risk because Texas might redraw its districts, but in California, Harris got 58.5% of the vote in 2024, and Democrats hold 82.7% of House seats. So Republicans got 38%, but they only got of the vote, but they only got 17.3% of the seats. I thought this was a great point, so I wanted to just cover this here. This was a great point that I thought Jeffrey made, so I wanted to share this with you.
Hey, President Trump, it's time to stand down. It's time to make another phone call to Greg Abbott. This time, instead of calling him and telling him you're quote unquote entitled to 5 congressional seats, it's time to tell him to stand down. It's time to recognize that democracy is at risk.
Remember what I said about Democrats talking about democracy being at risk. Remember what I said about Democrats talking about democracy being at stake or democracy being on the ballot. When you hear Democrats claiming democracy is at stake, replace the word democracy with Democrats' political power. So what Gavin Newsom is really saying is Democrats' political power is at stake. So he's hiding behind morals and democracy in order to try to put pressure on Texas to not do something that would harm Democrats' chances at political power. Democrats in California were so worried about democracy and voters not being disenfranchised, their electoral map would look different. In California, 58.5% of voters voted for Kamala Harris and 38.3% voted for Trump. Now, if you go to the U.S. House of Representatives, 82.7% of those representatives are Democrats. Only 17.3% are Republicans. The Democrats get 58.5% of the vote, but they get 82.7% of the representation in Congress.
Why would
That is
that
not by
be?
accident.
That's because of gerrymandering, because he's already successfully gerrymandered there.
Now he's talking about adding more seats, which would then move Democrats' representation to 92.3%, and Republicans' representation would be 7.69%. Republicans would have 4 out of 52 seats, even though Republicans have almost 40% of the vote. But let's let him continue.
Founding fathers, 249 years. We're not going to sit back passively. We're not going to sit back and watch you light democracy on fire. We will fight fire with fire.
Translation, we're not going to sit here and let you destroy Democrats' federal political power. So we're going to fight fire with fire by making sure that 93% of representation in this state goes to Democrats and only 7 goes to Republicans to make sure that we can win on the federal level. He's not worried about democracy. He's not worried about being virtuous. He's worried about winning. If they were so virtuous and so worried about voters being disenfranchised and democracy, they wouldn't have one of the most partisan leaning district maps in the United States. It would be much closer to the actual representation of how people vote in their state. They're hypocrites and they're trying to weaponize morality in order to try to get more political power.
And it is a weaponization of morality, because they're basically trying to say we're the moral ones, we're fighting for democracy. They've never cared about democracy. That's true. And drawing that point home as well, this was shared by Steve Hilton. I'm not sure who this gentleman is in this clip, to be frank with you.
Well, let's just be clear about California, because California is the worst offender. Right now, we have a massively gerrymandered system in California. The Democrats hijacked what the people voted for, which was independent redistricting. They corrupted that process to gerrymander the maps. And so right now, if we had fair representation in California for the 40% Republican vote that there is very steadily in California, we would have an extra 12 House seats in California, 12. And so when they talk about fighting fire with fire and all the rest of it, to what exactly as Stephen Miller said, if you just take what Texas is doing, it doesn't even get you halfway towards correcting the gerrymandering that Gavin Newsom and his cronies have done in California. And let's just be clear about something. Why is Gavin Newsom doing this? He said very clearly that he's doing this to, quote, end the Trump presidency. That's what it's about. It's not about Texas. It's about Gavin Newsom trying to show that he's the one that flips the House so they can impeach President Trump. And this week, I announced that I will not let him do it. I commissioned a legal opinion. I laid out the details this week in Sacramento. If Gavin Newsom goes ahead with his illegal and unconstitutional scheme, I will file a lawsuit in state and federal court to block him, and I'm very confident we'll win.
And yeah, that is Steve Hilton. That is the name popped up there. So that's Steve Hilton, which I wasn't sure if it was him, because this picture, he looks a lot younger in this picture than that picture. But so he shared that out, and I hope he's successful in fighting against this. But who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? I'll certainly keep on top of this story. Here's Kevin Kiley, who is one of the handful of Republicans from California. And he's a great congressman also. He looks like he's 12 years old, but he happens to make, when I say he's a great congressman, let me clarify. He does really well in the dog and pony shows in attacking Democrats. Those, whenever they have a congressional meeting and he pipes in, he usually has a spicy moment or two. So is he actually great at what he does, or is he just a great showman? I can't really tell you. I don't know enough about his voting policy, his voting history. So I don't want to misstate and say, oh, he's great, just because he understands PR. He may be great. He says things that are great, but I don't know enough about his voting record to tell you that he's genuinely great. But here he is weighing in on this Newsom threat.
Newsom has targeted
That's not loud enough.
me again and again. Last year,
He's someone who potentially would be redistricted out by a new map from Gavin Newsom.
Newsom has targeted me again and again. Last year, he actually sent his own staff member to run against me, and I won by 46,000 votes. And the reason he's targeting me is very clear, because I've been leading the opposition to his absolutely insane policies, and we've actually been very successful in reversing a number of them. For example, my bill to overturn his ban on gas-powered vehicles was passed and signed into law by President Trump. We've cut off his funding for high-speed rail. We've reversed his worst crime policies. I've introduced a bill to reverse the sanctuary state. I'm fighting against his men and women's sports policies. So, of course, Newsom wants me gone. This is merely an attempt to eliminate political opposition, but his past attempts to target me have failed, and I'm confident that this one's going to fail as well.
Yeah, and I know that you recently introduced a bill to limit redistricting to the beginning of each decade. I know you said that Newsom is subverting the will of voters and trying to wipe out essentially what remains of the California Republican Party. There's only 9 of you guys. Can you tell me more about that bill?
Yeah, of course. So my concern is first and foremost for what's going on in California, and Gavin Newsom is a unique threat to democracy. He is trying to overturn the will of voters who put in place an independent citizens redistricting commission. He's come up with a scheme to sideline that commission and to seize its powers for himself in order to draw a hyper-partisan map that, as you said, will reduce Republicans to holding 9 out of 52 seats. That's what we have right now, not that many, but that's too many for him. So he's going to reduce that to 3 or 4 out of 52. So we have something like 5% of the seats in the House, even though we get over 40% of the vote in statewide elections. So I've introduced this bill saying this cannot be done. We need to stop Newsom's scheme in its tracks. And that'll also stop this brewing redistricting war from breaking out across the country, which I don't think is going to be a good thing.
And I'll tell you this much. This might be a little bit of a hot take here. Let's go big for the hot take, right? Let's go big for the hot take. Go big, Joe. Go big or go home. I'll go big for the hot take. When I hear a politician say we're going to stop this redistricting war before it happens, I think, okay, they might have positive motivations. Or if I was a neocon, I'd probably want to keep the status quo. Now, I'm not saying he's a neocon. Again, I'm not accusing of that. As I said, I don't know enough about his voting policy. What the bills he just cited that he's brought up are all positive bills. They all, sound like good bills. I'm not calling Kevin Kiley a neocon. Definitely not. I'm simply saying it just sort of feels as if let's keep the power where the power is currently residing. Now, the reason I think that this is an important thing to note is this is an example of where a neocon perspective ends up being better for the ultimate fight than having Democrats in there. Ordinarily, and I've said this several times, although not in recent history, I think, I can't stand neocons, and I'm like, I'd almost rather have a Democrat in there so that we can get rid of the neocon stench and replace them with someone who is MAGA oriented. So I have said that a bunch of times, although not in the last 6 months or so. And I've taken that position, and that's what I'm saying is in this context, the neocon position is actually helping serve the cause. So we always need to be mindful. I still despise neocons. And again, I'm not calling Kevin Kiley a neocon. I'm just saying that, trying to conserve their power is they're a mutual shared interest in this particular, on the fight in California. So even if he were a neocon in this context, him being there is more beneficial than obviously if there was a Democrat there. So there you go. There you go. All right. And a couple more on just how terrible Newsom is. These are the clips we need to save. I'm airing this now so I can help promote, so it can be saved for when Gavin Newsom inevitably declares his run for the Democratic presidential nomination, which that's certainly going to come sometime within the next 18 months on the outside. So here is Gavin Newsom talking to some of his constituents and making some really humiliating admissions.
That people are leaving in droves, businesses are leaving, and it's just gotten to a point where no one is comfortable.
Putting the lid on it. What do you mean?
Well, just we've been saturating with the CHP and others supporting local law enforcement. They're wild.
People leaving in droves. This is really good. Yeah, we got people leaving in droves. This is the state of California.
Wildly understaffed. They're not doing any pursuits. They're not we're not prosecuting even people that are being arrested.
We're not prosecuting people that are being arrested. And what kind of violence is going on? Tell us what kind of violence is going on in your state, Gavin Newsom.
And you got folks. I mean, I had a member of my staff. Now listen to this. A member of my staff with her daughter, and a gun was put to the kid's head in the stroller to take the diapers. I mean, at what point do I say, okay, that's the kind of stuff like that's where people are leaving in droves.
So yeah, that's welcome to the state of California. Yeah, that's what's going on there. We got more on the state of California. I didn't get to listen to this, but But I saw the headline here, and I haven't listened to it yet. But when you see the headline, I'm like, okay, I can watch this with my audience. Gal explains perfectly how Spencer Pratt is taking down Gavin Newsom over the missing $100 million that was supposed to go to LA fire victims. Missing $100 million. Instead, $50 million went to an NGO that Newsom's wife runs, and that money is MIA. Oh my God. Growing scandal. Growing scandal. So I don't know enough about this story yet. I'm going to learn the details here start learning the details here with you. But this is more about the madness of King Newsom.
Watching Spencer Pratt take down Gavin Newsom is the best thing on the internet right now. Gavin Newsom threw a charity event where all these celebrities came and played a concert and raised $100 million for the fire victims of LA. Problem is, none of those fire victims has seen any of the money. So, C-list celebrity Spencer Pratt.
This is starting to sound like the Clinton Foundation with Haiti. That's what it's starting to sound like. That this story, it's starting to feel like Haiti and the Clinton Foundation.
Went digging to find out why. Spencer and Heidi Pratt's home burned down in the fires, and they have had all kinds of trouble trying to get permits to rebuild their home. Meanwhile, old Gavin Newsom's out here doing a land grab to build his low-income home. So when Spencer started his digging to see exactly where this $100 million has gone, he discovered that $50 million of it had basically gone into Gavin Newsom's pocket. So now that Spencer has brought so much attention to it, an investigative journalist from Circle the News has gotten involved, and she has done her own digging on where this money has gone. She has discovered that instead of the money going directly to victims, that the money is going to several nonprofits. Some of these nonprofits are actually using the money to help victims and going to their nonprofits to provide things for victims, but many of those have zero ties to victims whatsoever. One of the nonprofits that received the largest financial grant is called Cal Volunteers. Guess who is the chair of that nonprofit? None other than Gavin Newsom's wife. So y'all go follow along, because this is so interesting that the Attorney General is getting involved to find out exactly what old Newsom is doing with the money for these victims. And anybody that exposes Gavin Newsom has my full support. Mind you, this is all alleged. I do not need some dirty Democrat coming after me.
So there you go. There you go. I'm going to try and look into this more and look into this individual here who's referenced here, Spencer Pratt. This is Spencer Pratt here. You guys know who he is? He's a C-list reality TV star. Have you guys heard of him? $104 full build. All right. Well, anyway. I'm going to try and look into that more. And if I feel like there's something here, I'm going to try and bring that to you maybe as soon as tomorrow. Perhaps as soon as tomorrow. That was all the things I had on my docket for tonight. But I promised one loyal fan here that I was going to be looking at something that happened on Tim Pool with red heifers. So if this is not something of interest to you, just give me that heads up. We can end this show here. For those of you who are like, I don't care about red heifers, I'll tell you, that's cool. Don't touch the lamb meat. It's meant for they, them. It's not meant for you. don't need some bugs. For everyone else who wants to stick around, while I review this thing I've never seen before of this, I guess, Jewish guy who was on Tim Pool, I am going to do this here and now. We're going to cover this thing and we'll see exactly what this guy said. I hope we're at the right point. I think we are at the right point where this guy is talking about the red heifer. Now, before I even start watching, I'll tell you, purely based on this guy's yarmulke and the hair that I see that he has, he looks like he is Lubavitch. What does that mean? It means Lubavitch are Orthodox Jews. It's a brand of Hasidism. If you're unfamiliar with what Hasidic Jews are, so Hasidic Jews tend to have long curly hair, long curly side locks. Not always, tend to. And the way I would explain it is Hasidic versus Ashkenazic Jews used to be, if you go back, Hasidism is a form of Orthodox Jewry that goes back to the 1700s and 1600s, several hundred years. And the first type of Hasidic, the Hasidic Jew was introduced by someone who was called the Baal Shem Tov, and he introduced this concept of Hasidism. Now, Hasidic Jews, again, unlike, you might have heard of ultra-Orthodox, modern Orthodox, conservative, Reform, Reconstructionist. So I'm a practicing Orthodox Jew, and my family is Ashkenazic. Did I miss anything? Only red heifer I know is Jim Psaki. Fair enough. I think I got this. Did I get all this? If AG Barbie gets fired, I say promote her meat. Okay. All right. And Gavin Newsom has California Stockholm Syndrome. That's all too true and too sad, unfortunately. That is too true and too sad. It is the reality. And the race says, Newsom, lovely state you have there. Lovely indeed. Indeed. Need yellow ears on Batman for Trump's hair. Oh, wait, I had a bunch of these I missed. Batman for Trump's hair. I think it worked out. Aaron Hack, member for 25 months. I'm going to give it a horn. Joe, hope you're well. It's been a while. Thank God, quite well. I heard SCOTUS defers to the states on districting. That is true. They do. They tend to. They rarely intercede. They're in prison. I know he was talking to prison folk there. Only red heifer I know is Jim Psaki. All right, so we got that. All right, so we got this out of the way. So anyway. So Orthodox Jews follow Torah as our governing law. Well, actually, Torah and recognize Torah as being divine. Torah is the original, what Christians would refer to as the first 5 books, the 5 books of Moses. So we look at that as being divinely inspired, as well as the prophets, which in total I think there's 23 books. I think there's 18 books of the prophets. Off the top of my head. And that all of that has divine origination. Now, Hasidic Jews are the same. So, and we follow guidelines, and there might be some small distinctions, like the restriction on cutting the side locks in general when it comes to the issues about shaving. So there are certain dispensations that Orthodox Jews who are called Ashkenazic or Litvaks is another thing, which comes from the word Lithuania, because many of them came from Lithuania. So they are, and the technical term, another technical term for non-Hasidic Jews is misnaged, which means against. That was actually the Vilna Gaon, who's a brilliant sage who lived around the same time as the Baal Shem Tov. He was very much against Hasidic Jew, the growth of Hasidism, because I'm trying to figure out how you would say it in English, but That's why I'm sort of struggling as I'm sort of thinking this through. So he was against the growth of Hasidism. But if you want to basically look at, so people tend to classify Ashkenaz versus Sfard. Ashkenaz really means European. Sfard means more, comes from the word Spain, but it actually, I think it comes from the word Spain. But those are more your Middle Eastern Jews. So the opposite of Hasidic is technically misnagid, which means against Hasidism. And what made Hasidism unique was that there was a big fixation on the head rabbi being someone who it gets passed dynastically from like father to son, usually if they have sons, or a son-in-law. If they don't have sons, it often will create a fracture. And so you can look at it. The comparison that I would give is, it's the same thing like you have Catholics and Protestants. So it's different sects of Catholics. So a lot of different sects of Hasidic Jewry. And each sect will have their own head rabbi. That is our guy. And what they study and what they focus on will be different from one sect to another. There's certain sects which are much larger than others. So when I say this guy is Lubavitch, I'll tell you that from just seeing people there, I'm assuming, I could be wrong, I'm assuming he just has a very Lubavitch feel to him. Lubavitch Jews are the most well-known Jews internationally because Lubavitch Jews are a unique flavor of Hasidic Jew in the sense that they are very into pushing irreligious Jews to engage in Torah, much more so than perhaps any other brand of Jewry you can find. So they will open up they'll open up what are called Chabad houses in every town in the country. And they basically, the head authority, Lubavitch, will send out, oh, okay, you're going to go to LA, you're going to go to India, you're going to go to South America, and you're going to go to this tiny little town in California. If you want to find, if I'm looking for like where else I'll find like Orthodox Jews, the most likely thing I'll find there, they pop up like McDonald's. They're everywhere. There's like more Hasidic shuls than like Starbucks. They're everywhere. So, and I give them credit because it's not easy to do that, but there's a different kind of flavor. But another element to Lubavitch and Hasidic Jews in general, but Lubavitch in particular, is there's a very, very big focus on the coming of the Messiah, which all Orthodox Jews believe that Messiah is going to come. It's actually one of our core beliefs, is that Messiah will come. And they're very, very fixated on the Messianic age. This is relevant in the context of a discussion about the red heifer. Because a lot of you are saying, what the heck is a red heifer? What is that? Well, if you actually read the Torah, you actually look at and go through it in the book of Numbers, I want to say around chapter 20. Around chapter 20 or so. At the start of a section that we call Parshas Chukas, Chukat in Hebrew, there are these detailed laws about the red heifer. Now, the red heifer was used during times when we had the temple. The temple was destroyed back in the year 69 or 70. And so we're coming up towards 2,000 years since it was destroyed. And during those times, when the temple was in existence, there were certain rules regarding ritualistic purity and impurity that related to daily life of Jews who were living during the time of the temple. Because if you were ritualistically impure, you could not. Well, first of all, there are certain rules which the rabbinic authorities said are no longer in effect once the temple is destroyed. Many of them relate to the rules of ritualistic impurity. And these impurities and they're all brought down in the 5 books of Moses. You'll find it there if you actually read it through. And these ritualistic impurities, if to get purified from the most stringent forms of impurities, because there are different levels of impurities. So for the most stringent forms of impurities, amongst them would be, let's say, coming in contact with a dead body. So a dead body conveys this ritualistic impurity, which we call in Hebrew tumah. So in order to remove that tumah, which is a deep level of tumah that comes from being in contact with a corpse, you would need to go through a certain process of being purified, whereby they would take they would take the ashes from a red heifer, and they would basically a sacrifice where they would have to find a red heifer, which was, and this is something that's brought down in the Book of Numbers expressly. The whole process is walked through there, where they basically explain that you need to find the red heifer. It can't have even 2 black hairs. If it has even 2 black hairs, it's invalid. And that the red heifer would basically, it had to be a certain age, and it could never have been done at any work. It couldn't be more than 3 years old. And they would take that red heifer and they would bring it as a sacrifice. Then after they would take that sacrifice, they would first slaughter it, and then they slaughter it like as humanely as you can kill an animal, but they would slaughter it and then basically there was a specific type of sacrifice for the red heifer. There's a lot of different types of sacrifices that were brought in the temple, but that was the sacrifice that was brought for. There's a specific sacrifice that's brought for the red heifer, and Torah tells us that this is only during the times of the temple. This does not apply at all any time in the last 1900 years. Okay, so that during that they would take this red heifer, and like I said, there was a special sacrifice for that, and they would keep the ashes from that sacrifice, and those ashes were part of the purification process. Historically, it's brought down that historically there were, during the course of all the temples they had, which if you include the different temples and sanctuaries that they had that they were performing sacrifices in, which cover like 1,200 years, they only ended up needing 9 red heifers throughout that entire span that covered more than a millennia. Because you're only using a tiny bit of ash for any particular purification process. So, and we have learned that the 10th red heifer is not going to come around until the Messiah comes. This is the context that you all need if you want to understand when I'm watching someone who looks like he's Lubavitch, who's about to explain the red heifer. Because what ends up happening is people will sometimes spot a red heifer. This comes up a lot. They spot a red heifer, and when they spot the red heifer, they basically say, oh my gosh, this is a sign that the Messiah is coming. That's how they take it. I personally never understood that for a number of different reasons. But chief among them is, I think that through the ages, there have probably been countless red heifers. When our sages say there's going to be a 10th red heifer that will come in the time of the Messiah, when the temple, because we believe the temples will be rebuilt in the Messianic age, that's when we'll have the 10th one that's brought as a sacrifice. Does that mean that there's been no red heifers anytime in the last 1900 years? No, quite the contrary. I've seen videos going back probably 20 years now where it's like, oh, here's a red heifer. Oh, here's a red heifer, which gets some Jews all a titter. Or like, oh, wow. So that would be something that could be used. Just because you see a red heifer, to me, that's not a sign of, I don't take that as a particular sign that the Messiah is coming. Now, if you ask me, I do think that we are coming close to a Messianic age because of other things we see going on in society, which are so completely unorthodox. So when I say unorthodox, I'm using the traditional sense of the term, meaning so highly unusual. So such a complete devolution from what society has ever experienced before, that to me, this is symptomatic that society is basically collapsing on itself. One of the chief things among them is living in a post-truth world where people can't glean basic truth, obvious truth for themselves. That's the sign of a society which is just imploding. And the idea that people just can't figure out what a woman is, to me, is a sign of a society that you can't last 100 years like that. Because just in order for you to have a society, people have to be interacting with each other, where we're all understanding that, gravity is gravity, light is light, and dark is dark, and a man is a man, a woman is a woman. These are all like such basic, obvious truths that if this is something that becomes subjective or whatever, on just obvious truth, society ceases to function, because you can't even have a conversation with the person next to you because you're not even talking the same language. That this person who's talking about a woman, and they're talking about somebody who basically chopped off the genitalia and stuck a needle in their arm, and now all of a sudden, like, you can't have a conversation. And to me, that's somewhat, I sort of feel as if, like, at a certain point, relatively soon, God has to intercede. Well, anyway, that's the background that I'll give you before we listen to this guy, and we'll hear what he says.
Okay. So this is like the Jewish Messiah is going to come back. Would that be similar? Would that be like the return of Christ, or would it be a different
Here's
guy?
the thing. I think the most fundamental difference between Judaism and Christianity is that Judaism actually believes in reincarnation. And so the Messiah is here in every generation. And there's a process by which we are awakened enough to accept the Messiah. So if the Messiah doesn't come, he dies, he's reconstituted, born into the matrix again, and has to find his way back to another thing.
Okay. Oh, this is going to take me a while. Oh, JH. Oh, this is going to take a lot of work. Oh, my God. There's a lot of disputes about who the Messiah is, where he is, what the deal is with the Messiah. I don't understand his explanation there. The reason I don't understand his explanation there is because what would happen if the Messiah is only 4 years old when it's time for the Messiah to appear on the scenes? We're going to see a 4-year-old kid come out. See, I don't understand that perspective. So that perspective, I personally would not subscribe to. We do believe in where the soul can be reincarnated. We actually believe that a soul that our souls are sort of could be rollovers from prior souls, and likely are. So yeah, that actually I would agree with. The reincarnation thing that we do, that is a Jewish thing. My house on the moon. This number's 19, not 20, but impressed. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
We can't build the temple until this happened. And now that this happened, the Messiah can come build the third temple.
What is he talking about? What? Oh, I feel like I missed something. I'm going back because I feel like I missed something. What is he talking about here? Oh my God.
We could go smoke this after the show, but
Punch, yeah.
this is the stuff right here, man.
Oh
1,000
no.
We're about it said that makes it sound
No. I gotta go back because no. I gotta go back. You told me to start 120, but that was too late, JH. I gotta go back. I'm sorry. Who is this guy? No.
It was rough, but honestly, like
even DC's, I mean, the DC area is pretty pricey as well. So it's I haven't gotten full like redemption. I think you need to keep heading south to really just experience what a normal rent price should be.
It's intentional. They to drive the rents up is very simple. All you have to do is make building complicated and very restrictive.
Yeah.
And then population growth is just gonna by default.
Well, and you're competing, and I hate to go back to it, but it really is a pressing issue. I mean, like Queens, New York, for example, half the city's foreign born. So it's like you're not only just competing with fellow Americans for housing, you're competing with the world for housing. And it's like, how is a young person supposed to get ahead?
So we're going to jump to the last story here. Adam, you came in and you have a story to break about the red heifer.
Right.
Could you go ahead and elaborate on that, please?
Right. So this was a big thing over at InfoWars and on the dissident right media for the longest time, the Jew hate media. Yeah. Do you have my tweet that I actually put on my... So I basically, what happened, if you want to go to the first slide first before we play the video, about a month ago on July 1st, there was an announcement that they were going to do a practice run of the red heifer. And
practice run. Okay. Still don't think you should be doing that. I don't think that should be done. I don't think that should be done. Respectfully, I don't think that should be done.
And prior to this, the media outrage that the Jews were going to go do this red heifer, you had like these lunatics like Stu Peters and others who were saying this is going to usher in the Antichrist, blah, blah, blah. And it was like a real big media.
This is secretly the real deal. No.
Polygon.
We continue looking at this. Is actually just a practice. I don't know what the hell this is. I don't know what this. I mean, I know what it seems like it's going. I know where this seems like it's going. No.
It was really a bad twist. So they said that and also the government wasn't going to let them. So what they did was they said, we're just going to do a practice one with one of the 5 disqualified cows. The government said, okay, whatever. They ended up going out, doing a real cow. One of the cow's name was Tikva. They made the offering, and Tikva
is Hebrew for hope. In fact, the Israeli national anthem is called Hatikva.
It was
which means the hope.
Real offering. They did it all by the laws, and I have with me some of the ashes right here. Red heifer ashes. It's pretty incredible. The red heifer, the last time that the red heifer was done was over 2,000 years ago.
And it still wasn't done now. No. This is blasphemous.
The first time it was done by Moses. The second time it was done by Ezra from the book in the Bible. And that shows you how long the ashes can last for. So a pure red heifer doesn't come about all the time, and in this generation,
I don't want to declare it blasphemous. I'm just saying it's feeling very blasphemous. I don't want to. No, this is feeling.
We had 21 of them that were born pure. They picked 7 to bring to Israel, and out of the 7, Israel only allowed them to have 5 brought in, and they've been sitting around just doing nothing because the media outrage has been so astronomical about it.
Yeah, okay. So one of the things is it has to be 3 years old. If it's more than that, if it's sitting around, then it's useless.
But the red heifer people, they fooled everybody, and they successfully performed the ritual about a month ago.
No, they didn't.
Now, in the ritual, you're supposed to have hyssop. I have also hyssop.
Yeah, that's true. That's a plant that goes as part of the ritual for slaughtering the red heifer.
Hyssop that is from the actual ritual, and also the red heifer ashes. And these get put into a clay jar and then sprinkled on people in a healing ritual. And it removes the impurity of death and allows for people to heal. So
When you say remove the impurity, that's not the only impurity. And it's impurity caused by coming in contact with a corpse, not that the person themselves is dying, which is how that comes across. Okay. Wow. So much confusion from everything this guy is saying. So much not helpful information, more likely to be misconstrued than actually informing or enlightening anyone. But I'll let him continue before I...
Since this started, they have been sprinkling on people. There was a man with Alzheimer's who just started remembering everything.
Oh my God! No! 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 Absolutely not! This is Toeva. This is Toeva. This is Toeva. This is now Toeva. That's where we just ventured into Toeva. I'll tell you right now. No, this is what's Toeva. Toeva is a word that comes up in the Torah that the English translators have mistranslated as abomination. But that is not at all what the word Toeva means. Whenever you hear like something like this, some sin is an abomination, that's not an actual Torah word. Okay? So I've talked about, I had one show here where I was blasting this rabbi for his Toeva. I'll define that for you in a moment. I definitely talked about this on the show a couple of times in the past, but this is venturing into Toeva. So I want to explain to you. I'm glad that you brought this to my attention, JH, because I'm telling you right now, what this guy is spreading now is untrue, inconsistent with Torah. This is not what Torah Jews believe at all in any way, shape, or form. First and foremost, it is expressly prohibited to engage in any sort of animal sacrifice, or certainly any other type of sacrifice, unless and until we're in a messianic age and there is an actual temple. You're not even allowed to do it. You're not allowed to do it outside of a temple. It is considered like idol worship to bring sacrifices outside of the temple. So the first step would be you need to have a temple, and that temple is not supposed to be man-made. But we believe that the third temple, because there's been two before, that the third one is going to be brought to us by God. Now, what does that mean? Like literally a structure that's going to fall from the sky? Is Messiah going to take care of it? I don't know. I think this is not a topic that anyone outside, when it comes to messianic stuff, issues in general, while we believe it's going to come, it's not our place to sit there and try and figure out what day is it coming, who is the Messiah, when is the Messiah, is it what's going to happen during the messianic age. We have general understandings as to how things are supposed to operate in a messianic era, and we are not supposed to do anything to facilitate the coming of the messianic era other than being righteous in our own personal lives and our societal lives. So in other words, we as a society and individually have an onus upon us to correct our sins, and amongst our sins are basically, how we deal with others and our relationship with God. All of these things are tied into the efforts that we as individuals are supposed to engage in primarily for our own personal spiritual health, and secondarily to help bring the era of the Messiah. That is what the non-Hasidic perspective is on the Messiah writ large as to our day-to-day basis. But one thing that is completely accepted by I wouldn't even eat in this guy's house now, because I'll tell you what, the one thing that is accepted is you're not supposed to try and pretend that we are in the times of Messiah when there is no Messiah. And it's very clear that when the Messiah comes, you will know about it. You won't need to hear about it from me. You will know when the Messiah comes. So have you heard of it? I know that, Christians believe Jesus was a Messiah, but I'm saying if when the Messiah comes, I'll tell you right now, put aside anything that happened more than 1,000 years ago. Let's just put a pin on that now, which obviously you understand that Jews don't accept Jesus as being messianic. But what our belief is that when the Messiah comes, you will know. They will come, and you will know. You're not going to have to hear about it from me. You're not going to hear about it from your neighbor. You're going to know. And that certainly has not happened. And until that happens, we're not supposed to have a temple. We're not supposed to have sacrifices. We're not supposed to pretend that we're in a messianic age. You're not supposed to be slaughtering red heifers or sprinkling ashes on people. The ashes that they're sprinkling on people is not supposed to. There's nothing indicating that it had any sort of miracle curative properties the way this guy's describing. Nothing he is describing here is consistent with what Orthodox Jewry writ large believes. Nothing. Other than he's making references to things that come up in Torah that we believe will occur. You're not supposed to be doing that. You're not supposed to be taking the ashes. I'm frankly questioning whether or not I'm supposed to actually be having this conversation on YouTube altogether, because we're a little bit private about this sort of thing, because we're just like, we don't know. And and for us to engage in trying to tell people this is going to happen, that's not going to happen, you're likely to actually make mistakes, because a lot of it is purposefully shrouded in mystery. And when I say purposefully shrouded in mystery, we actually believe that Jacob, as in patriarch Jacob, back 3,000 years ago, when he actually near the end of his life, because he had prophecy, was intent on sharing with his sons, who were all very righteous, his 12 sons, that he was going to share with them what would happen in the coming days of the Messiah, and that God purposefully clouded his mind and shrouded it because he did not want him to share it even with his own offspring, who were infinitely more righteous than any other Jew who's lived in the last 1,000 years. So that they weren't even supposed to know about it. So that's why when Jews come along and start saying this is the Messiah, it's like, look, we're supposed to hope for the Messiah to come. And I do. I pray that he comes every single day, 3 times a day. I pray that the Messiah will come. And we all hope for it. And we're all supposed to take our own personal steps in our personal day-to-day lives in order to help ensure that he comes. But to start acting as if he has arrived is so thoroughly inconsistent with Jewish perspective, with a Torah perspective, as to how Jews or certainly non-Jews are supposed to be viewing the world, is so utterly twisted that I would call it to'eva. Because the word to'eva, which, as I said earlier, is referenced and translated in your English King James or whatever as being abomination, does not mean abomination. I don't even know if there's the word. No one ever uses the word except in context as to what that word being in the Bible. And what I'll tell you is that what it actually translates into is perversion, utter perversion. And I don't mean perversion in the sense of oh, you're so perverted. No, I mean perversion in the sense of you take something that's straight and you twist it. Pervert truth. When you pervert truth, the problem with perverting truth and perverting things, you take a straight wire and you bend it a little bit, you can never get it perfectly straight ever again. And that is something which is abhorrent to God. So when you take Torah and you pervert Torah, but that's what the word to'eva means. The root of that word, of ta'av, means to twist and pervert something, to make and you're basically ruining society. This actually leans into why I was saying that I think that we have to be in a messianic age, because so much truth has been utterly perverted that people don't even know what truth is anymore. On basic, foundational, how do you have a conversation with people type of truths. So that's why I'm saying that what this guy is doing here, in my opinion, I could be wrong, I'll tell you right now, what he is expressing here is such a terrible twist about what Torah actually says that it's a perversion of Torah, that it is to'eva. In fact, I'll tell you, for example, if you've heard homosexuality is referred to as an abomination, and the actual word in the Torah is to'eva. Why is it called to'eva? Why is it called a perversion or twisting? It doesn't mean that you're perverted. It means that the actual healthy relationship between two men is now morphed into something that God did not intend, and treated as if this is better, or this is an improvement, or this is a betterment of natural state. So that's why it's referred to as to'eva. Now, somehow along the way, that got translated by someone translating Torah into abomination. And while I agree that Toeva is a terrible thing because it cannot be re-straightened once you twist something like that. But the same way, so we would sort of look at it the same way incest is an unhealthy expression of love between a parent and a child. It's the same thing, an unhealthy expression of love between two friends, because we look at copulation as something that's designed to be building a family, and expressly for that, and a healthy family. And that's why we look at it that a sexual encounter is designed to actually be promoting and bettering society by bringing children into the world, and not for your own self-pleasuring. So when you take something, you say, oh, this is an expression of love, that we basically look at it that is, you're taking what God intended for how we're supposed to function and twisting it in a way that you're trying to make it seem as if it's superior. But in so doing, it's actually the ultimate rejection of God and his word, in the sense that you're trying to find an improvement on Torah. And you're twisting the actual truths that God builds into society and saying that your perspective is superior. So all of these things don't make society better, that it serves to ultimately harm society, deconstruct society. That's what the word Toeva does. So in particular, when I see people who profess and hold themselves out as being Jewish come out and express opinions that are directly conflicting with every accepted opinion on Torah is, to me, I find that to be similarly Toeva. And I think it's a terrible, terrible thing. Now, because the whole point to Torah is it's supposed to be giving truth, and if you're twisting it into what this guy is saying, into what no rabbinic authority, worth his salt in the last 2,000 years would agree with, that I think that there's a certain audacity, and it's bad for society. So I am going to continue watching this. I don't know if I'm going to go through 25 minutes of this, but I am going to continue watching this. But I get very fired up about this, because it's, this touches close to home. This is my life. And you're basically misrepresenting to the entire world, going on Tim Pool and misrepresenting to the entire world as to what Jews believe, when this is not what Jews believe. This is what this individual believes. And what this individual believes, in my opinion, is Toeva.
Sight to the blind. There's some real miracles.
There's nothing like that. There's no indication in any of our texts. You can go back to Talmud, Mishnah, you go back to Torah. Nowhere does it say that the sprinkling of this ash, which is mixed together with water, and he's right about that it's mixed together with a certain type of water and certain types of, none of this would work. This is not valid. I think it was actually probably the inspiration for the thought of holy water that Christians use, because a lot of what Christians embraced seemed to be a metamorphosis of Torah. So it could be that holy water comes from that. Certainly, I think the baptism comes from another, the ritual baths that we have. The overlap and the similarities there just seem too on point for it to not have been some sort of metamorphosis that the Christian world took from Judaism. So that is part of it. It's like afterwards you would collect the ash and you would have the ash for centuries in theory, and use that ash, a tiny little drop of that ash, go with water and sprinkle it on someone. But the only objective was the purification I mentioned at the outset of the introduction here, not to heal people physically, to heal the blind or the lame. That's ridiculous.
That have happened in the last month since this thing has gone down. But the ashes, just like I have a little bag, there was 10.5 gallons of ashes. And this is only a dime bag full. And these ashes have been disseminated. They're here to stay. They will never be found. So many people have them. And this little bag can power about 10,000 doses.
Can't do anything. A little bag can do nothing. It is nothing. What a scam. An outright scam. Outright scam. It would, even in the times of the temple, it wouldn't have the curative properties. But what he did here, performing, or his friends or people he knows or whatever he's associated with did here, was not religious, not holy, not anything. This is a terrible, terrible act. We're not supposed to engage in this type of activity during a non-messianic era when we are in diaspora. We are now in diaspora. And until we're brought back into Israel, temple is rebuilt, this is not supposed to happen. Not in Israel, not outside Israel, in Texas or wherever it is that this thing happened. Whatever, I don't even know where this happened. Maybe it happened in Israel. It wouldn't change anything. If they did it on the Temple Mount today, where the temple originally was built, where the Western Wall is, that would be even worse because you're not supposed to go up there. Nothing about this is religious, is Jewish, religious, holy, other than it's basically taking from Torah and twisting it.
This power about it said that makes it sound like really potent cocaine.
It packs a punch. Yeah.
This is the stuff right here.
Test
man.
it for fent.
This is the. But we could go smoke
You
this
probably get more curative powers out of fentanyl in that bag.
after the show. But no, I'm just kidding. Come back from the dead after you do.
This feels like Looney Tunes talking to doesn't know better. Yeah. Or within the household of where a corpse has been. That's correct. Not even just the household. It could be even under a beam, the same beam. I'm not going to walk through all the laws of purification and impurification. There's so many. There's so many, and I'm certainly not sufficiently expert to start giving a lecture in that. But if I were, what little I know, I could probably do a series of like that would take 10 hours to give over. With the little amount I know, and I know a tiny amount about it. So, Joe, if you study up on the red heifer, you can set the record straight by going on Temple. Temple's underground. We're working on it, Joe. Good job, Heisenberg. Thank you. I can agree to disagree with my Jewish friends. The Messiah has come or is still coming. Yeah, look, I understand you're not Jewish, and you're going to believe you should stay true to your faith. I have no problem with that at all. Did he say messianic? A bit altruistic, Sam. I don't know what the heck he's talking about. I don't. This is not Judaism that Jews actually practice.
Do something like that. But I have a video from the ritual, and if you want to play it, I don't know if you.
It feels very culty to me, actually.
It has copyrighted music.
Zalian said, Joe, I messaged you on Twitter, but is there a good website you can suggest for those who are looking to learn Hebrew? To me, that's not like even a Jewish thing. I mean, you can. We don't go to websites because we teach Hebrew to our kids when they're 3 years old. So I don't actually have an answer to that. I'm sorry, no. Hooked on Spanish, hooked on Hebrew. Thank you for the insight. Help me understand religion better. I'm glad, Nere. Thank you.
Can you slide it so people could see the slide? So these are the slides of the actual ceremony being taken place, and that's tikva, and everything was done specifically according to halacha, which is Jewish law.
Nope. First and foremost, the setting. You can't even bring. Here's the oxymoron. You can't even bring a. You have to be pure to bring the sacrifice. You're not pure already. None of this is This is hopelessly bad.
It was a perfect cow, and meaning that it doesn't have a single hair that is not red. And also, it could never have been burdened with work.
That's
so you
true.
can't even lean a shovel up against the cow. They have to be treated in a very specific way for their whole life. And then the person who does the ritual can never have been in contact with death. So basically, they're not allowed to go to. They have to be of a specific bloodline. And
that's true because the priest perform the sacrifices. That is true. Here's the problem you have, buddy. Here's the problem you have is that he has to be pure, and we say that they ain't. That there's impurity everywhere here. Now, technically, if the majority of Jews are impure, that the rituals could be performed during state of impurity. But I don't even know how you would handle any of this without getting it impure before it actually, because this is so messed up. So messed up. There's so many problems here.
They do was they raise these children in like these elevated homes above the ground, and they
okay, so that's how they try and get around the purification problem.
Never leave the home until they're ready to do the rituals, and that's like how they never come into contact with death. So the priest who did this literally lived in his home for over 20 years before he
never left.
Nope, because he was born to do this ritual.
Wow.
This is so messed up.
And now,
so I was talking about how everyone is impure and that the priest has to be pure. And he's describing a way to keep someone from becoming impure, because we actually believe that the ground outside carries, in today's age, during the diaspora, not in Israel. In Israel, it wouldn't necessarily be, but that there are all sorts of problems, that there are impurities. If you step over a skeleton, you would become impure. Even if it's on the ground, it's buried. You don't even know it's there. That's what I'm saying, is there's so many impurities everywhere. So he's trying to, so they think they circled around this problem. The biggest problem you have is that there's no temple, and that your curative properties thing is just straight out of nowhere.
Now that it's been done, the Messiah can come.
Messiah doesn't need you. Doesn't need your help. Doesn't need you. He needs your help in that you need to basically repent. You need to repent from all the, I don't know how, repenting from this. This is repenting from I don't even know how he would repent from this. This is terrible.
Okay, so this is you're talking about the return of.
I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and assume that he's just very, very confused. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and assume he's just very, very confused, and that he was raised in a home where which is basically a very small section. I'm going to try and give him the benefit of the doubt here. That he's raised in a home which is a very, very, very small subsection of Orthodox Jews who have unusual perspectives about what Orthodox Jewry, what is incumbent upon Orthodox Jews to do, and what steps we're supposed to be taking, and that his interpretation is something that I would say is completely verboten by Torah. Maybe he has some other authority. Maybe he's confused, or all these people are confused that he's working with who are doing this. Someone raising a 20-year-old kid. This just seems so. And you're definitely not supposed to be doing this outside the temple.
Return of the Mac. Here we go.
So this is like the Jewish Messiah is going to come back. Would that be similar? Would that be like the return of Christ, or would it be a different?
Here's
guy?
the thing: I think the most fundamental difference between Judaism and Christianity is that Judaism actually believes in reincarnation, and so the Messiah is here in every generation, and there's a process by which we.
Oh, there you go, Uzelian. Duolingo is Hebrew as a language learned. There you go. Probably work.
Are awakened enough to accept the Messiah. So if the Messiah doesn't come, he dies. He's reconstituted, born into the matrix again, and has to find his way back to another.
I watched a YouTuber talk about this and said that's why October 7th happened. No. October 7th happened because that's what God wanted. And that's the Jewish perspective. Tragedy like that doesn't befall unless like that's something. And we're not supposed to sit there trying to figure out why events occur. That's not the place of, that's not our job. That's not our function.
Other thing, we can't build the temple until this happened.
No.
And now that this happened, the Messiah can come build the third temple.
What does
in
that
Jerusalem.
mean? What does that mean?
And
Is there a time frame? So this is the ritual's been performed.
Listen, Trump only has a couple of years left, or the Democrats are going to put a stop to it. I mean, this is going down now.
Democrats are trying to stop the Messiah.
The Democrats are trying to stop the Messiah.
Zoran.
But yeah. So the time frame. I mean, there is no time frame for it. It's kind of like, you take the cake out of the oven when it's ready,
and
so we're all just sitting here down on Earth cooking, waiting for that time where we accept this moment called Shiloh, where all the world gathers together. Shiloh is a gathering of all the peoples of the world to honor God in Jerusalem.
So I'm unfamiliar with this term he's referencing here, Shiloh. And again, I will say this, that when it comes to messianic type of things, this is something that becomes much more of a fixation for Lubavitch Jews than for than for my brand of Jewry, because like I laid out for you the extent to which we actually focus on Messiah. We pray for it every day, and we hope for its return, and we believe it certainly will happen, and that there will actually be a resurrection afterwards of, like, everyday folk who were righteous. But and that may happen a long time after. Probably, from my understanding, it likely would happen a long time after the Messianic age. But yeah, that this whole return, that there would be a return. But Shiloh is a place that's not in Jerusalem, which is where the first tabernacle was kept for centuries during the time of, like, Samuel, before the first temple was built. So they had a sanctuary, which is what was transportable, which is what they used in the desert when they were wandering in the desert, and for another like 400 years after that, roughly, and until Solomon came along and built the first temple. And that was housed in Shiloh, which is a city which is some distance away from Jerusalem. So when he's referring to Shiloh here, I don't know what he's referring to. This is something, but it is the sort of thing that he would likely have studied on more than I would, just because the studies of the Lubavitch Jews are, and the focuses of their study are very different, vastly different. Like, they spend a lot of time studying on messianic type of stuff. But even whatever they're studying in their messianic stuff, I cannot believe for a second it authorizes bringing a sacrifice while we're in diaspora, prior to the temple being built. To me, that's just utterly backward.
And so this is a major earth-shattering announcement because the anti-Semites, the Jew hate media, has tried so hard to shut this down. And actually, this ties into October 7th as well, if you want to hear this story.
Yeah, please.
Oh, God, no. I don't even want to know where this is going. I don't even want to know.
Please.
So after they killed Yahya Sinwar, they found his briefcase. And in his briefcase were all sorts of correspondence with Hassan Nasrallah. It turns out that Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran were planning a strategic attack at the same time. There's a Washington Post article, a Jerusalem Post article that I'll send you. You could put it on the screen. But essentially what happened was Iran wasn't ready for this. They were planning an all-out surprise attack at the same time. And Yahya Sinwar became obsessed with this story, a lot like Stupid Peters and these other fools, that if the Jews did this, they would become unstoppable. And so they did October 7th prematurely to force the hand of Iran and to force the hand of Hezbollah and the Houthis and whatnot, and ended up resulting in the complete catastrophic destruction of all these entities. I mean, Iran, the paper tiger of our childhood, is no more. Hezbollah is no more. The Houthis are just a bunch of random people that live in the mountains. They have no influence anymore. Hamas is gone. And it's all because this one man became so obsessed with the red heifers. So it ties into like this messianic story of like the liberation of the land and the rejudification of the land, possibly even greater Israel.
So I have to ask, as Christians, as Matthew 24:36, where Christ says, "No one will know the day or hour when I return." So why, as Christians, should we care about the red heifer?
So there's all sorts of different.
I don't know why Jews should care about it. It's not our concern today. Talk to me after the Messiah shows up.
Denominations of Christianity. Some people think that Jesus is God. Some people think that he's just the Messiah and that God is the God. And
I mean, if you're a Christian, you kind of have to think that Christ is God, right?
That's what Nestorianism, that was.
I actually have come to learn
in the 6th century.
I actually have come to learn through being like.
So this is the thing that always confused me, and I do think it depends on which brand of Christianity you're talking about as to whether Christians believe Jesus was God or God in male form, in human form, or Messiah. And I don't understand that. I guess that the Messiah, that maybe some people think all of the above. I don't know. So I'm curious what if you guys can give me some. You guys will know that better than I would.
Is Jew in this like exclusively Christian space, that a lot of Christians, different denominations like Unitarianism and certain Protestant faiths, don't believe that Jesus is God. They believe that he is the Messiah. And there's nothing wrong with that in Judaism. That's a very symbiotic.
But that's not Christianity.
It's not.
All right. Wrong. Completely 100% wrong. No. Okay. I was starting to feel a little guilt that maybe I was too harsh on this guy. That is wrong. Jews do not believe that Jesus was God or Messiah, and it would be completely wrong for a Jew to express otherwise. I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with a Christian. I actually endorse the idea that Christians, should stay true to their faith. And whatever way you were taught, whichever interpretation of God, Messiah, like man, whatever it is that you were raised with, to me makes sense. Stay with that. Certainly not looking to proselytize or anything of that nature. But the idea that Jews should be recognizing Jesus in that sort of capacity, whether that's acceptable under Torah, is 100% wrong, backward, and it's considered for Jews to engage in that to be a terrible sin. We can't fully comprehend God's actions. Our understanding of God is limited. We attempt to apply our logic and understanding to God, but God surpasses any earthly comprehension. This is true. God's ways are beyond our comprehension. 100% agree with you on that. This guy trying to say Unitarians are part of Christians, I reject. I don't know enough about Unitarians to weigh in on what he's talking about here.
That's not certain forms of Christianity. There's a lot of different denominations. All right. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of different forms of Christianity. It's certainly Unitarian Christianity.
But yeah, so but no Christianity believe the Trinity is present in all Christianity.
Also, the Trinity is, from my uneducated knowledge, is not a Protestant thing either.
No, it's 100% a Protestant.
It's 100%.
Trinity is a Protestant thing.
Trinity is like
it's not just a Catholic thing.
No, it's a base understanding.
Anyways, so
like Mormons reject.
Here's what you
like Islam looks at Jesus as a prophet.
They look at him as a prophet. So as a Christian, your question was, how does this affect you?
Oh, so I understand. So that's what Unitarians are, some sort of blend. The whole Jews for Jesus thing is very, very anti-Jewish. The whole stop trying to straddle. Pick your lane. Pick your lane. You can take the right side of the fence. You can take the left side of the fence. If you try putting a leg on each side of the fence, the only thing that ends up happening is you crush your nads.
Right. Yeah.
Nothing good comes.
So
of
you can't have a third temple without this being done.
Wrong.
And I said this to somebody the other day. Like, do you believe that God, that everything in the Bible is true?
Yes.
Everything.
Yes.
So God instructed the Jewish people to carry out all sorts of different commandments, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's so funny. We're people that love Civil War reenactments. We do reenactments for everything, but when it comes to Jews reenacting things that God said to do in the Bible, you have like these groups of right-wing French Christians who are just like, this is satanic, this is not real, and this is, but it says so in the Bible. Now, God likes to be administered by a priestly class, and his offerings in the temple, they're not offerings per se. They're more like food. Like his meals are being prepared in a specific way, and the aroma is what he consumes. Reach nechoach. He consumes the aroma, the scent of the offering.
Okay. Torah does make reference to Reach Nichoach many times when it's talking about sacrifices. This is true. I don't agree with his description as it being God food. Now, maybe he's trying to find some way to make this interpretable to me, the same way. To me, I always looked at sacrifice as being like the way you sort of would look at it. You have to understand that an animal sacrifice is a way of like giving that which belongs to us and basically saying this thing that has value, because animals had inherent value, is something that we're going to sacrifice and part with in order to honor you, God. And the first examples of this are Cain and Abel, where Cain brought a sacrifice and Abel brought a sacrifice. Cain brought fruits and vegetables and whatever that were his, and he was the farmer, and Abel was the shepherd, and he brought animals. And the reason why we believe that Cain's sacrifice was spurned is because he used like second tier type of lower tier type of fruits and vegetables, whereas Abel used like the best of his animals and said, I'm parting with my very best for you, God. So that was so that the sacrifice, but it's not the smell. What's the smell? Like God needs smells? Like God gets hungry? I don't think this is helpful in making people more enlightened. This is true. We are all
So
the same race.
God has very specific procedures about like purity, who can come up to God. You can't just like be unshowered and go before God.
Mhm.
And so like, how do you clean yourself? How do you prepare oneself to actually go do to the temple, right? Forget about outside of the temple for now. So if you're going to go to the temple and worship God and pray to God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the temple of Jerusalem, where it always has stood, then you have to prepare yourself in a specific way. Now, up on the Temple Mount, you cannot come into contact.
So he's talking about the purification. That's what he's talking about as far as preparing yourself.
With death. And
the purification was not, by the way, it wasn't just the sprinkling of the water. Afterwards, they would take a ritual bath in the evening, and then they would be considered purified.
Be there. It's such a pure place that death can't exist there. So this ritual is a ritual that removes the spiritual impediment of death.
I've never heard. What?
Like, I'll give you an example. Death loves company. So if you touch a dead corpse, there's a specific level of impurity, and impurity is the wrong word. It's like an emptiness. It was a vessel that once held a living soul.
I agree that impurity is not the proper word. It's the best. It's the closest word we have in English. Although I've never heard emptiness as being a better word or a word that really fits in here.
Soul, like thoughts, emotions, feelings, ideas, but then it's empty. And so there's this vacated space that sucks things into it. So if a person touches a dead corpse, they too contract this thing called tumat mavet, which is the impurity of death. So in order to remove that God gave over in his Bible a recipe with the ashes of the red heifer to purify one of death, and it removes the spiritual impediment of death out of the consciousness of humans, which allows them to heal, to live, and to be able to go up on the Temple Mount in a clean way and pray. So if you believe that Jesus...
By the way, I'll come to his whole perspective on Jesus in a moment. I mentioned before when this story was first brought to my attention that this is considered a chok. Chok is a word which means we believe that when it comes to commandments, we have some are called chok, or plural will be chukim, and some are called mishpat, or in plural be mishpatim. Mishpat are things that are laws that come from God, which we can try to actually comprehend and understand what the logic is behind it. Like, don't commit murder, don't steal. These are things which you don't need to have Torah to sort of say, okay, that makes sense to me, that should be laws that are going to govern us. The primary example of chok, which is defined as laws which we cannot comprehend. It's beyond our human comprehension, as similar to like what Allegan was referencing earlier, as far as comprehending God. The prime example of that, and the first example we have of that anywhere in the Torah, is in Numbers 19, where it's referenced as that this law of the red heifer is a chok. It's something that we cannot understand. Part of the confusion about it is that the person who's performing the priest who's performing the purification, through the act of doing that, he himself becomes impurified. He himself gets toma. So why it is that that works that way is something that we humans cannot understand. But the Torah actually introduces this whole topic of red heifer by saying this is the chok. This is the law that you're not going to understand. You're not meant to understand, which is why it's almost comical that this is the law he's trying to explain to them, the rationale behind it. It's like Torah expressly says, you're not going to get this one. You're humans, you're not going to get this one. We're not going to just accept it. And it's part of our faith in God that we're like, yeah, you know what? There's some laws that you're just giving us which are intended for our own good, and we cannot comprehend why they operate the way they do. So for him to sit here trying to explain to people who have no training in understanding Judaism, the logic behind this particular law is almost laughable, because this is the very law out of the 613 commandments. This is the one that the Torah says you're not going to understand. So here he goes.
This is God, or if you believe that Jesus is the Messiah, whatever you believe, doesn't matter. If you believe Jesus is God, then you believe that Jesus told the Jewish people to do this.
Well, we believe that Jesus was the ultimate sacrifice, so we don't need a third temple. Christ was the ultimate sacrifice.
That's heresy. That's not what God wants. God actually,
third temple.
God
It
wants.
says in John, Jesus.
What heresy from what? Like who? With the audacity of this guy? You're telling this guy what's heresy. You're telling him what's heresy. You're sitting here saying that it's fine for Jews to accept Jesus, and you're telling this guy that this, what he's saying about his own religion, is heresy. Is it heresy to Judaism, or is it heresy to his own religion? Because I'm sure it's not heresy to his own religion. And just because we don't believe it, if he's not Jewish, so what? I feel like I'm getting.
Said God wants to dwell with us.
Right.
He created this world. Actually, this world is the most special of all the worlds. I hate this because everywhere I go, like, I really love politics. I want to comment on politics, but it's like, hey, the Bible. So
well, you brought that in. I mean,
I did. I brought the red heifer, ashes. So basically, there is so much richness in the Bible, and I don't understand this. Why do Christians think that none of it matters because of Jesus?
Because Christ told us that he dwells with us through the Holy Spirit.
So you think that there's no need for Jerusalem? It should be barren. It doesn't.
I mean, we just believe the covenant was fulfilled.
Yeah, like
we believe
Christ,
in the old book, but we believe the covenant was fulfilled in the new book with the establishment of all the new things that Jesus brought about.
Christ was the ultimate sacrifice, the fulfillment of the old covenant.
Right. So we believe the old book. We believe all that stuff. We believe that'll happen. We believe it was all God, the same God.
So you believe that Jesus is going to come back?
Yes.
So where's he going to go when he comes back?
I mean, if
you're going to go to West Virginia and hang out here at Temple?
No, of course not. They said it's like they forget the name of the valley, but like the Valley of Megiddo is like supposed to be where the final.
So Israel.
Yes.
So Jesus goes back to Israel, right?
Well, he's from
that's in Revelation.
Okay, so then there's there's actually some sort of function with the land of
Jewish,
Israel.
for sure.
Yeah, it's
in the Christian.
that's how it works.
So in the Christian religion, the land of Israel is very important.
Yes, of course.
Right.
Holy Land.
So something is going to happen in Jerusalem.
For sure.
Prophesized.
100%. So this is what I wanted to ask about. I think my camera will be screwed up a little bit, but I'll quickly ask. There's been people that have talked about, like, because these heifers were brought from Texas, right? When the generations of heifers, like, they were the one, like, basically the the argument was against, like, were certain ones selectively bred in a particular way? I've had a lot of experience. You know, I'm the Afrikaner here who's a lot of experience with like growing cattle and raising cattle. Were they selectively bred? Does that change anything according to the
No,
law?
you could selectively breed them. Yeah, it doesn't. They were selectively bred.
Okay.
It took many generations to breed out all the black hairs.
Wouldn't that get rid of, like, so as a Christian, I don't really believe in like the mystery, but like I don't really necessarily, but I believe in there's mystery within the faith, and I totally see where the Eastern Orthodox, another separation of the faith, where they believe heavily in like the mystery of like of all of this. Wouldn't that get rid of like some of like the divine intervention of Christ making these heifers? Like, if people were the ones who are growing these cows to be a particular thing? I'm just asking. I don't
Not
know.
at all.
This is
not at all.
Anything,
so the ritual calls for an all red heifer.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't call for it to be an all red heifer, like born of a black cow and a white cow or anything like that. It's an all red heifer. So,
okay,
like
that's
in human history, there's only been 9 of them that have been sacrificed. Now, there's probably red heifers in every single generation.
Okay.
But if the ritual is done by Jewish people and the red heifer is often, you know, Malaysia or wherever it's born, nobody in the old world, it's not going to get to us. So part of like, actually, ironically, I'll bring this out. I was going to give it to Tim, but I just published my first book. It's called Od Shiloh, The Blueprint for the Final Awakening. And I talk about basically in this book the process of if you want to look through the process of what happens in the world when the Messiah comes. There's a whole transformation that takes place to our entire being. Nothing is the same anymore. The laws of physics are even going to change in this new paradigm that we're entering into. And as
it's like Maimonides.
No.
All right.
Well, Maimonides.
So on this part, I'll tell you, I don't know anything about what's going to happen when the Messiah comes, other than that we're supposed to have returned to Israel, and then we'll have a temple, and that life is supposed to vastly improve for everyone. Oh, and there'll be universal recognition of God, or there being one God. That's basic. That's what we expect to happen. But as far as like these different things that he's going to talk about there, I don't know, but I would, given what I've seen him say so far, I would not trust him as a source for what actually Jews believe. I'm sure it's a source for what he believes, and perhaps what, you know, his authorities have told him. But I'll tell you that as far as like this is what widespread Jews, Orthodox Jews believe, no, definitely not. So he touches on things that we believe, and I tried walking through the things. Like even before he spoke, I mentioned that there were 9 sacrificial red cows. That's true. The 10th one's supposed to come in the Messianic age, which is a reason you're not supposed to do this now. Another reason you're not supposed to do this now.
Talks about it, but I quote him in my book several places, but it is that it's all, he talks about a lot about, the Rambam talks a lot about the coming of the Messiah, but 1,000 years ago, they were speculating with primitive understanding of the world what the age would actually look like.
Right.
So if you read a lot of the books of Kabbalah, such as the Ramchal, Derech Hashem, which I give a Tuesday night class on.
Okay. Since he brought up Kabbalah, I had a feeling he was going to end up going there. You probably have heard the term Kabbalah. In the 80s and 90s, it was popular for celebrities to study Kabbalah. Whatever the heck that means. Kabbalah is mystical elements to Judaism, which were comprised by the Arizal several centuries ago, who was a brilliant Kabbalist and understood a lot about the mystical elements to Judaism, which there is a lot of mysticism. Again, this is an area where Lubavitch Jews tend to focus more. I assume he's Lubavitch. I don't know. But Hasidic Jews are more likely to focus on it. We do not study Kabbalah unless you're supposed to be very learned and over the age of 40. On my side of the Orthodox Jewish ledger, I can't speak to his side, but we actually specifically don't study it. We believe that it's incredibly deep, and that you're much more likely to get confused and become disoriented and less informed if you study Kabbalah and you're not properly trained for what it's actually supposed to say. And by the way, I wouldn't give any credence at all to Kabbalah in English. I would only learn it in its original text that was written by the Rizal in Hebrew. And I do not feel like I am sufficient. I've never studied Kabbalah at all. People who study Kabbalah don't talk about it at all with anyone. It's like a private thing that they study. And they're not supposed to be discussing it on Tim Pool. Again, the mystical elements are not supposed to be like broadly discussed with your friends, other Jews, on a podcast. And I will tell you that I've never studied Kabbalah. And he doesn't look like he's over 40. Maybe he is. I don't know. Maybe he's just youthful looking. I have problems with this, but I certainly wouldn't trust him as a source on what Kabbalah teaches any more than I would trust Madonna.
Awesome Jew. The Ramchal speaks about the age of the Messiah, that in the age of the Messiah, everything reverts back to how it was in the Garden of Eden before the fall, before the sin. Telekinesis, the ability to move things with your mind. Mm-hmm. Things like that humans are going to be downloaded with unbelievable powers. In the Garden of Eden, nothing physical was able to impede on Adam before he ate from the tree of knowledge. He wasn't supposed to die.
Yeah, I don't know anything about this. I don't know anything about what's going to happen in the Messianic age. I'm going to wrap up over here on this guy. I don't know anything that's going to happen, so I can't dispute what he's saying. I would simply say that given everything I've seen from him so far, I would certainly say that he's not a source I would trust as what Jewish perspective is on anything. Because he has enough information to be dangerous in misinforming. And some of the stuff he's expressing to me is utter misinformation. So I've tried to outline for you that which I knew to be misinformation as I heard it, but he's venturing into an area that I am dubious to believe that. I think the notion that he has it right is very dubious, to say the least. Very, very dubious. I'd be shocked if it wasn't laden with misinformation. But this is an area where I'm not sufficiently equipped and studied in to actually correct him. So rather than perpetuate his perspectives, which I assume are likely deeply flawed, I'm just gonna tap out and say, I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen in the Messianic age. I hope it comes very soon. And until it happens, please no sacrifices. No, just no. And a lot of what he was saying there, I'm just like, wrong. So I can't trust him on that. So when you get past the age of 40, you go full Alex Jones and study Kabbalah. I have not. They say you're supposed to be very learned, and I never consider myself sufficiently learned. And I feel like I know a lot more about this than, yeah. It's arrogant, foolish perversion to assume that mere men can force God's hand in timing. 100% agree with you on that. God doesn't need our help. He only needs our devotion and worship. He's so prideful. It's very twisted. Yep. That was well said, Kim. Very well said. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing well. And if you guys want to help out, go to gisingo.com/Kimmy Guy to help her out. She is fighting a battle like a warrior. And it's always, I get a smile every time I see you, Kimmy. Give me the horn, Joe. Oh, what the heck. There you go. That's my show, and I'm sticking to it. Let me do a quick check, make sure I didn't miss anything in here. Nope, we're good there. And I'm going to check over the Diggers, make sure I didn't miss anything with Diggers. I'm going to remind you, if you join late, if you're interested in fantasy football, linked Link is at top of the chat there in locals at goodlogic.locals.com. And we're taking up to 12 people so far. I haven't checked out how many we had, but I think we had like 6 or 7 who had signed up so far. I expect to relatively quickly get to 10. I don't know if we'll get 12. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But if you want to play against me in fantasy football, I should have probably put the rules up there, but I don't know. Well, the rules are all around. And if you have questions about it, feel free to ask on that thread in locals at goodlogic.locals.com. That's goodlogic.locals.com. I can't believe I'm nearly at 3.5 hours here. I thank you all for joining me. God willing, I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Till then, take care of yourselves. And as always, Godspeed.